All right. We are live. Welcome, everybody, into the Xbox 2 podcast episode, 349. I'm one of your hosts, Randall Thor19, the man with the million. And with me, we have sleepy Jez Corden today. Oh, so tired, Jez Corden. You guys have to send Jez all your energy because he's been doing nothing but yawning and complaining about how so tired he is right now. So tired. What's up?
Been a hard week, man.
Yeah?
Been a hard week.
Been a difficult week for you? Been a difficult day?
Yeah, a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't this going in? I fucking hate USB, man. It's like you try and plug it in one way and it won't go in, and you flip it around and it won't go in that way either. There we go. Fuck me. But yeah, I got there in the end. It's been a hard week, buddy, pal, homie. And I got up very early, but we made it. We made it through the week. We all made it through together. And now it's Friday, so
It is
let the
Friday.
hair down, relax.
Great time to do the show the day after the Xbox Developer Direct, which most everybody seems to be quite positive about. And, so we do have a lot to talk about in this episode.
Even some of Xbox's biggest haters I've seen be positive about it, which
the
is
Xbox
wild.
haters? Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I mean, you did put it out last night on Twitter that Xbox is officially alive for at least 12 hours. And that hasn't ended yet, or has it ended? Actually, it would have ended by now. So I suppose Xbox could go back to
being
dead. But
yeah, as soon as you say something like Xbox is so back, baby, and it's like the next thing Xbox announces is like, oh, by the way, Fable's cancelled and Playground Games needs to shut down or something like that. Oh man. But so far Xbox is still alive as of the podcast, so yes, that's good. That's positive.
Yeah, so I actually released a video yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Making content, and it kind of makes me want to do more, but we do have a lot to talk about in the show. Our thoughts on the Xbox Developer Direct. I haven't talked to Jez about it because when he came into the Discord call, he was like, oh, so tired. And I'm like, do you need me to go get somebody else to do the show, Mr. Sleepy? And he's like, no, I pushed through it, and he's just like, I just need...
Yeah, we'll push through it.
I just need a cola. I just need a cola.
I need a cola.
Yeah. Have you gotten your...
Really, really, really need a cola.
Have you gotten your caffeine injection yet?
I've drank my cup of tea, so yeah, we need a cola now. But my girlfriend's very, very graciously going to get me a cola. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, we'll have caffeine. We'll live. We'll survive.
It's like it's like what Nerds and Legends said in chat. I don't know. Phil interview with Destin should be dropping soon. Don't want to speak too soon. Yeah, you never know what could come out of the Phil interview, right?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I mean, I don't think Xbox is very sort of the people I speak to at Xbox. There just seem to be this sort of this sense that this is going to be a very good year for them. And they're very confident, and they've still got a lot of bullets left in the chamber.
Yeah.
So this is just the beginning. In theory. As soon as you say that, something bad's gonna happen. Touch wood. Do you do that in America?
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Knock on wood so you don't jinx yourself.
Don't curse. Don't curse Xbox. Knock on wood. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
It's like you say that. Maybe it's like you say that. It's like, oh, by the way, Fable, Outer Worlds 2, they all got delayed to 2026, and they don't have any games in the back half of the year. Right? So you just gotta be careful.
Indeed.
But anyways,
so
other than the direct, how was the rest of your week? I know you put out a review. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth finally came to PC yesterday.
I did. I've been putting dozens of hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I mean, I'll just talk about it briefly, but I absolutely love this game.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the game. You know, like, it's hard to talk about it without mentioning the Ubisoftification of it, though. So that's a word I'm using now, Ubisoftification, because the open world segments do feel as though they were designed in a time where Ubisoft was the standard bearer for open world. I suppose when Square Enix was sitting down to build the open world areas for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, they were like, okay, what popular open world games are there? Okay, Assassin's Creed, let's do it like that. But like in 2025, it's like, Jesus, I don't want to be climbing towers to unlock icons to, just, icons all over the map. But on the plus side, you can ignore all that shit. And even if you do ignore all the open world stuff, there's so many cool wide linear segments in the game, like dungeon, like almost like classic dungeons. That you can pretty much just ignore all the open world stuff. It's like it's there if you want it. If you just want to, max out your character or try different builds or get every single materia or all the like side quests and all that kind of stuff, it's there if you want it. But there's still a huge and meaty game, even if you ignore all of it, which is really cool. And I did ignore quite a lot of it because I didn't have time for it, But love the game. It's a fantastic game. So much nostalgia. I'm still a bit iffy on where they're going with the story, but I'm gonna try and keep an open mind for the third part. And they did talk about the third part a little bit this week.
Yeah, recently about how they said it won't be a PlayStation 6 exclusive.
Yeah, so that most likely means it's coming to PS5.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But some people took it to mean that maybe it means it's just going to be on everything
because it's the idea of so like Remake launched as a PS4 exclusive, and then Rebirth launched last year as a PS5 exclusive. So people were wondering, hey, is the next one going to launch as a PS6 exclusive? Assuming like the same time in between games, you're looking at like 2028, which, maybe that's right around when the PS6 would be coming out. And you'd be like, well, at that case, it probably would be cross-gen. But he was just like, no, it won't be exclusive to PS6. I know a lot of people are taking that and be like, oh, it's going to be multi-plat day one on Xbox and Switch 2 or whatever, but...
he did kind of say... What did he say? He said something along the lines of, we want as many people to play it as possible.
Yeah.
Which is a phrase they've used previously while talking about going multi-platform. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's entirely unfair to think they're kind of hinting that this could go further afield than PlayStation, or at least have a simultaneous PC launch. But I suppose we'll see. I mean, it's a different industry now than when they first started. It's crazy. When they first started the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, it's like, it's a completely different industry now. Like, so much has changed since then, Yeah. So...
Do you remember when they originally revealed it? I mean, people have been talking about a Final Fantasy VII Remake for years before they even revealed it. And then it was at that E3 of Dreams, as they call it, 2015, I believe, Sony's E3, where they had the trailer, and people freaked out. In fact, a lot of people say that's one of the reasons why they won the generation, is they had that, and it was like play first, and people were talking about like the E3 of Dreams, because it was The Last Guardian, I think, showed up, and in Shenmue 3, I believe, right? Like, it was like these games that you didn't really think really existed or were so far away, and 5 years later, remakes out. But you're right, by the time they release the third part, it'll be like 13 years since the reveal of the game. So a lot has changed, and I think later on this year we'll get the announcements of ports for Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth for Xbox and PlayStation, or Xbox and Switch too, right? More than likely, you're probably going to get the Switch 2 announcements in April at whatever developer direct show they're doing, and Xboxes is at some point. I think Final Fantasy 16's got to come first, because you're on the record, because there are a lot of people like, oh, Jez Corden full slate Final Fantasy, where are they? Didn't happen immediately, so therefore you're wrong. It's just like, be patient. things are gonna come. Like, don't worry
I think
about it.
it's kind of wild that you'd set yourself up for being wrong like that. I mean, pretty much every single Final Fantasy game is on Xbox now. I mean, there's literally no reason why they wouldn't port it. Like, even if I didn't have information that it is being ported, it's fair to assume that it is being ported. You know, why would they have done pixel remasters if they're not going to do 16 and 7 and the rest of it? You know, and 17 even, whatever that looks like. Like, it's weird to start thinking about Final Fantasy 17 after all these years. You know, I remember being excited for Final Fantasy 8. For God's
Dude,
sake.
I remember being like Remember when it was Final Fantasy 13 Versus before they changed it to Final Fantasy
they changed
15?
to 15.
Yeah, I remember
That
being
whole thing was so
pumped.
strange.
I remember being so pumped. But yeah, it's crazy. So you really liked Final Fantasy Rebirth?
Rebirth.
I'm happy.
It's amazing.
I'm gonna play it. I don't know. I'd probably be thinking about playing it this year because I have taken my own JRPG journey this year.
You have.
I started out January 1st, and as you guys know, because I've talked about it recently on the last couple shows, I have finished Metaphor ReFantazio. So I have beaten an Atlas game before you. That was the big thing. When I tweeted that out, I had so many people responding, be like, "Oh, you beat it before, Jez," which I always told you that if I started the game, I would beat it before you. But you're at least good for now, because as much as I did like Metaphor ReFantazio, I kind of want to break from a game like that. So if I ever do check out Persona 5 Royale, it probably won't be for a year. I'm not really...
You're not eager for it.
Yeah, I am interested in seeing, okay, what's the differences between Persona and this? Because I did like this enough, but I'm not, I don't want to, jump into something right away, right? There's a whole bunch of games coming out and stuff, so you're good for a little bit.
That's such a relief.
For a little bit. So 90 hours, bro. 90 hours for Metaphor, and I mean, I think I did every quest that you could do in the game, and I liked it. I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it. I liked it quite a bit. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. It definitely wouldn't be in my top 5, and it would, if I had to slot it into top 10 somewhere, it'd be in the lower portion of it. There are things I liked about it, but there were some frustrating aspects of the game. For starters, the ending just goes on and on and on. They literally, you could probably cut out the last 10 to 15 hours of that game and ended it sooner than how they did. It just kept going and going and going. But I did feel it had a really good villain. Luis was pretty cool. Although towards the end he kind of just becomes ridiculous, but his nonchalant attitude was just I don't know. It was he sort of had an aura around him. I know it's you use aura on cinema, but he definitely had, I don't know, it was he had presence in the game that a lot of characters lack, where you saw him and the way he looked and how he spoke about stuff, it was okay, this guy's got some shit to back it up with. And a lot of the characters I did enjoy. My favorite character was Heisme. Stroll, I thought was awesome. Yufa was pretty damn good. Thinking oh, well, I'm not gonna like this character, but I actually thought she was well done. The main character is really not much of a character at all. He's more kind of a stand-in for maybe the player, because he doesn't really have much to say, really. But so the story was well done. There was those that where the story kind of played it straight for a bit, and then there were some twists and turns, and they kicked it into high gear. But I guess maybe one of my frustrations with the game isn't so much with anything to do with the gameplay and the combat, because I felt that was fun. I felt unlocking different archetypes and screwing around with the different magic systems and like, okay, I unlocked this magic over here, but I could buy the spell and put it on my character here, and like kind of like figuring out what's the best way to attack things was always cool. But it's with the other half of the game, like, because it's 90 hours long, not because the gameplay needs it to be, but because there's a lot of story. There's a lot of voice acting, but there's also a significant amount of text dialogue you have to read. And
Ew, I hate reading.
I mean, a lot of text dialogue. But towards the end of the game, or like the more you're playing the game kind of the characters kind of get somewhat repetitive in how they speak about the themes of what the game's trying to get across. So eventually, as you get down into like the hour 70, hour 80, hour 90, and you're reading the same thing but worded slightly differently from each character, you're just kind of like, oh my god, like really? You know what I mean? Like it just gets you just kind of just like, I'm done reading the text, because you know exactly what Hulkenberg's gonna say, and it just I sort of wonder they do that because they're like the media literacy in people these days, like they don't know what the themes are of the game or the motivations for the characters, so they have them constantly repeat it over and over and over again, so that's probably my biggest frustration with some of that stuff towards the end. I was just like, yeah, I've heard this shit 1,000 times in this game already. You don't got to keep on doing it, but maybe it's because I played it straight through. But yeah, that kind of started to really, really grate on me towards the end. But overall, I enjoyed my time with the game, and it does have me interested in checking out Persona, one of the Personas, at some point. So,
I mean, I was enjoying Persona, but I think it's just the setting for me. And a lot of people have said to me, you'll probably enjoy Metaphor more. So, but
yeah.
I ended up just going on a huge Final Fantasy binge recently, so that's kind of satisfying my JRPG desires for now. I've done 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going through the original 7 again, and also playing 7 Remake at the same time. Sort of like playing through each section, just to like look at the differences. I don't know. I'm really, really strange at the moment with Final Fantasy.
You're just a strange person in general.
Yeah, probably.
You really are. You're like the only person in the world who plays Overwatch 2.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Playing Overwatch by myself.
Everybody's left Overwatch to play Marvel Rivals. Didn't you hear?
Yeah, I did hear that.
Didn't you hear?
I did. A lot of people in Overwatch didn't get the memo, though, apparently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's still populated. But I suppose TF2 on Xbox is if you look for a game.
Yeah.
As long as there's a full server, I'll keep playing it.
We do want to give a shout out to our wonderful patrons who make a lot of this possible over at patreon.com/XB2, where you can join as well to get early access to some of the podcasts we do. And, if you got a question and answer thread is up for episode 249. So if you haven't got it in, make sure you head over there, and we will be doing, questions and at the end of the show. But we have the Xbox 2 MVP tier where we do some shout outs. So I'm going to get to them wonderful people now. We got D Big Fluffy Bunny, Resin Force, iMike Zero, Tier, Shrapnel, Inner Machine, Just James 93, Holy Dark Death, Steve Stompy, 09C Mine, James Wiseau, Tricks Are for Trey, Laser Wolf, Will Hernandez, Battered Haddock, Army Dude 52C, Ryan Kipple, Foreign Object, RS Donks, Randall Thor 19, Silas, James Moore, Fantasticals, Catriox, Bright Tundra 1, Discarded Caboose, Justin Duel, Frank Mariano, PB Broking, Asa T and Madison, Governor Grimm, DZ Huffin, Wagerman, Pat Rock, The Scarecrow 121, Darren Torpy, Briggs Country, Prof JJJ, and Wolfgang KPZ. Thank you guys. We appreciate everybody who supports us through Patreon. So, as for upcoming Patreon content, we'll probably do something on Tuesday. I don't know if we'll do. It'll either be on Ultimate or Xbox 2+1, but we'll definitely probably We'll be doing something. It's just a matter of if we can get a guest, and if we can't get a guest, then it'll just be me and Jez talking to the peeps, laying out all the information.
Talking smack.
You know, like, hey, this is the information you need to hear. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that.
Shout out
next
to
week.
Paris.
Paris is in chat. They are
sneaking around.
He's sneaking around. I mean, he's probably getting prepared for his interview with Phil Spencer today. Him and Danny. Gamertag Radio's, was it their 20th anniversary? 20 something like that. So Phil's gonna be on. Phil's also showing up with Destin. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of comes out of these conversations. I would, I was thinking like, well, if I was included in the misc of like, I'm interviewing Phil, but I also know Destin's interviewing Phil, and then Paris and Danny are interviewing Phil, and I'd be like, what do I ask? Because I feel like most people are going to ask similar questions. So how do I make my interview unique, where people are actually going to want to listen to it, even though they might have heard it? It all depends, like, which one comes out first, right? I think Destin's is going to be Patreon exclusive for a bit. He's really building up his Patreon subscriber base and doing that stuff after he left IGN. And, me and Jez were hoping to get him on Xbox 2+1 at some point so we can talk about, Xbox and all the stuff going on there. So maybe, Paris and Danny might at least live to the world, or, like, first. I would be thinking, like, if I was in that shoe, if I was also interviewing Phil, like, what would I say? Like, what questions would I ask? Could I, would I ask the hard-hitting questions, like, the multi-platform strategy and some of the things that Xbox doesn't do very well? But it's like,
it's kind of hard because there's always stuff like they can't talk about, right?
Or they don't want to talk. Yeah, but Phil's good enough at PR where even if he couldn't talk about it, he could, easily mention, oh, we're not, there's ways to get around it, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to. I'm saying, like, I'm a little more looking at it from the viewer perspective of, hey, there's all these interviews of Phil dropping this day. And once you read one of them, what makes you want to listen to any other ones? Because you would imagine most of the questions and most of the information are going to be the same. So it's like, which one is the one you want? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very curious to see what comes out of the Phil stuff. And maybe I'll make a video about it. Anything that's super interesting that comes out of this stuff. So what about you? Are you looking forward to what Phil has to say about any of this stuff, or is that just kind of? I mean, I know it's like your job, so I would imagine Windows Central Gaming is going to be all over these things because articles need to be written and money needs to be made, right?
Sure does, but I'm interested just for myself as well, and also the fans too. I'm just hoping that it's something positive, I suppose. It'd be cool to find out, like, if there's any sort of updates on platform stuff,
Right.
Like, 'cause I put out there recently that Microsoft's looking at upgrading xCloud. I got a bunch of sources on the plans for xCloud, going to higher bitrate, 4K, and all that kind of stuff. Also, I'd want to know, like, what's the status of the family plan? Things like this, like questions I get in my DMs a lot. Love to get answers on some of that stuff. So we'll see what Destiny and the gangs ask, I suppose.
That's right.
I'm personally interested a lot in platform stuff, but you'd probably be asking about games and shit, right?
Yeah. The platform stuff, like the cloud gaming stuff, doesn't interest me right now too much. So, like, better bitrate and 4K stuff is just like whatever. I'd want to know about hardware. What's their plans with the handheld space? When did they determine that handheld is something they wanted to make? Because it's pretty much out there that they're doing it. So at some point, you were anti-handheld, And you certainly anti-native handheld, but what made them change their mind to kind of being like, oh, this is something we need to do? And then, like talking about the next generation Xbox and, I don't know, you ask like, hey, has, the 2 SKU approach worked? Is this something that you're considering doing for the future? I know like one console and a handheld, that is a 2 SKU approach, but they're totally different, right? Like, I feel like they're going after a different market with the the powerful console and a handheld. But like the Series S and Series X, what have you learned from those things? Like, is the Series S stuff with the Black Myth Wukong developers or Baldur's Gate, is that like a learning thing where it's like, okay, we want to build this device because we feel it could serve an audience that maybe doesn't jump in right away, and we do that, but then it has some drawbacks, and how does that make us kind of recontextualize what we want to do in the future? I personally, I also would want to know, and I don't know if they'd ever answer this, like what was the tipping point of, hey, we bought Bethesda and said publicly it was for exclusives, and then at some point during the ABK stuff, we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. I'd kind of want to like pick his brain about
the tipping point,
like the why, the how, the where, the when, like, because we've seen the emails and it wasn't always like that, right? So it was like, what moment, who led the charge, like how did the rumors last year change any plans? Like, I'd be more interested in that stuff, and like ask them about games. Yeah, sure. Like, hey, this year's looking great, but was this always sort of planned to happen earlier? Like, do you feel like this stuff happened too late in the generation, or was this something that maybe was, we planned to have cadence like this 2 years ago? There's a lot of things you could ask, but that'd be the stuff I would be interested in about like future hardware. The when decisions were made, stuff like that. But
makes sense.
Yeah, let's take a couple super chats here. We have Supernova with the 5. Huge respect to Tina and Meanie for amazing work and professional production to the Dev Direct. Ninja Gaiden back in 2025. Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon 2026, 2027? Question mark. I mean, people would.
That'd be cool.
I mean, people would love it if Blue Dragon. I don't know if we get a Blue Dragon 2, but a Blue Dragon, like, if you look at the graphical upgrades that Ninja Gaiden 2 has,
Black,
and then what Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, it looks considerably better. So I sort of wonder how, if you could give that like Blue Dragon or Lost Odyssey the Ninja Gaiden 2 Black treatment, where like the game, then in my mind I'm thinking about, what about Oblivion, right? Because there's a lot of smoke around Oblivion being remade, remastered. Basically Nate the Hate said it's coming, and it's coming in June, with maybe a reveal in March for the 20th anniversary of the game. Tom Warren put in his notepad today that he's hearing it's like a spring-summer release. And, last week we talked about that interview where they basically had like there was a website or a person, and how they're changing some of the stuff to make it more modern, but then also using Unreal Engine 5, and that's what Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is using, and you can see how great it looks. So it makes me wonder just how Oblivion could look. Like, what is like an Oblivion remaster remake gonna look, and could it wow people where you're like, whoa, that's what that looks like? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there is this epic rumor about Oblivion remake, which, as far as I'm aware, is true. Is it this year though? Apparently.
Supposedly.
And Tom Warren, was it Tom Warren who put that out there recently?
I mean, Tom Warren just
even?
put it out there today. Yes, he as part of his notepad, he said that, let me see if I can get a quote here. He says, there could be more surprises on the way. In recent weeks, rumors have pointed toward a remaster of Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I first heard about this remaster last year, and at the time, Microsoft was tentatively targeting a release in late spring or early summer 2025. So,
Roger.
I mean, that kind of aligns with what Nate was saying about it coming out in June, right? June is technically late spring, all right, because summer doesn't officially really start until, when does summer actually start? June 21st, I think, is like the summer solstice or summer equinox or whatever it is. January, February, March, April, May, June. So it's like, yeah, it's like end of spring, beginning of summer. And considering we have release dates for games up until Doom in May, it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't really see Oblivion placing anywhere between then, but, you know, if you could have it in June, I mean, that's talk about a lineup where there's
How much
something,
is too much?
Well, it's not even that. It's like, it's sort of like the culmination of a vision they had back in 2019 when they started talking about this idea of a big game a quarter, right? Matt Booty, Phil, and this wasn't something the fans made up. This is like their mission statement was like, we're going to have a big game a quarter, which didn't seem outside of the possibility, right? It was just like, okay, we have all these studios. A lot of these studios might be working on multiple projects, but we got so much that you're going to run into these things where we're going to have multiple games a year. And just this year, in the first half, you have Avowed coming out in less than a month on February 18th. You have South of Midnight coming out on April 8th. You have Doom coming out May 15th. So the first half of the year is loaded. That's not even to mention Game Pass, right? With Eternal Strands and Sniper Elite launching at the end of this month on 28th and 29th. And then Expedition 33 coming out end of April. Atomfall coming out end of March. And who knows what other sort of games they'll throw into Game Pass on those months. But the first half of the year definitely seems pretty loaded with Xbox's own content. So then, you know, Oblivion really doesn't make any sense anywhere else within that time frame. So,
no,
you know, like a summer release, like a June, July seems like pretty good, and then you end up in the fall, and it's like, holy crap!
But wasn't there another game that Tom talked about in Notepad?
Yeah, he talked about Gears E-Day.
Now, for this year, right?
Yeah, he said Microsoft Summer Showcase will then set the stage for the rest of the year and beyond. Ninja Gaiden 4 is coming for the fall, but Microsoft announced that The Outer Worlds 2 and Fable are 2025 releases. It will also be interesting to see if Gears of War E-Day will make the 2025 release date I had heard Microsoft was planning for last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe it shows up. I'm a little bit pessimistic on that one. One, because
seems like a bit much.
Well, it's like I didn't know Ninja Gaiden was published by Xbox, and I think that changes some things. And the fact that the game's launching in the fall, so you already looking at the fall with 4 of your own games, with Ninja Gaiden 4, Call of Duty, Outer Worlds 2, and Fable. And, you know, there's only, even if you just did a straight, hey, Outer Worlds 2 September, Ninja Gaiden October, Call of Duty November, Fable December, and you just went from September to December with games, it's like, where do you even put in Gears of War at that point? Especially if, like, a Gears collection, which is rumored to be releasing sometime this year. I mean, if you follow the Phil Spencer hints and the Phil Spencer games played, you know, things, right? A lot of people thought Xbox was doing something with Ninja Gaiden because Phil went and visited Koei Tecmo and then suddenly was playing Ninja Gaiden on his profile, right? And then, What happens today, or yesterday rather? Ninja Gaiden 4 is announced and Xbox is publishing it. So like, So is there some truth to kind of like what Phil plays on his profile as hints for stuff maybe coming in the future? Maybe. And then if you look at what Phil's been playing recently, he's been going through the Gears trilogy. You know, back and pat Xbox games. Gears 1, Gears 2, Gears 3. And it's like, why would suddenly Phil be playing the Gears trilogy, which came out, you know, in what, 2006, 2008, 2000, what was it, 11? Huh, strange. Why would he do that?
Curious.
Why is he suddenly playing that? So, you know, Special Nick has consistently said, hey, that game exists. He revealed it too early. You know, it's been 3 years, so it's like, well, if that is coming out this summer, I'm not sure putting out a Gears collection and then a couple months later putting out the new Gears is like a really good idea. As much as I would love, like, hey, yeah, give me Gears Z-Day this year, I would love it. But it's kind of like, and this is something we never say, it's kind of like they have too much. There's not enough room for everything, so move it to 2026 where it could be better served. And that's crazy to even say, because we've been saying for years, you need to release more games. You need to show the first, you know, remember that the first 9 months of the year actually exist. And this year's not a problem with that. It's great, right? There's content throughout the first 6 months. But normally, Xbox holds their stuff to the end. And now the end's packed just like the beginning. And it's like, well, maybe there's just no room for this. It's a good problem to have when you have so much stuff that you're thinking like, well, even if it might be finished, maybe we should just hold on to it. And then, of course, you never know what Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to do. Right? Because you could have all the plans in the world, right? And it could all just be disrupted with a simple tweet by Rockstar and a drop of a trailer with the release date. And then all your plans get blown up in smoke because you run away because of the behemoth. And who knows if that changes anything. And then if it doesn't come out this fall, well, then you're going to have to be worried about, well, where do we position things next year? Because at some point it's coming out either this fall or next year, and you want to move away from it. So either way, your plans might be just get disrupted either way. It's just whether it's this year or next year.
Do you see? When are we going to start seeing the first headlines of Xbox has too many games? Xbox is ruining the industry by putting too many games out there.
I don't know. I think you'd have to actually get through the maybe this year. And maybe that should be an article you write at the end of the year. Like, Xbox has just too many games. I just don't have time. Something like that, right?
Yeah, that's been true for me for a while, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's what Game Pass is for, isn't it? Though, you know, play it when you've got the time. No rush. I mean, with regards to Ninja Gaiden, it's like, it's going to be in Game Pass in perpetuity because Xbox is publishing it, right? Yeah, so pretty much no need to rush my way to that one. It's kind of funny because it's multi-platform. They're publishing it in a multi-platform kind of way, right? Does this open up the opportunity for them to basically publish? I can't remember who said this, but I saw an interesting point on Twitter. And I really feel bad for not remembering who said it because it wasn't my original thought. But they made a good point. I think it was replying to Clobril, if I remember correctly.
I think I did see that tweet you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I can't remember who said it. If anyone knows, point it out in chat and I'll give them a shout out. But it was along the lines of, you know, developers will, if Microsoft's opening up its publishing efforts to third parties without the stipulation of exclusivity, that could attract more companies than ever to be like, oh, please publish our game. Please publish our game. And Microsoft can offset risk with Game Pass because, you know, you have a guaranteed user base there. You get content for Game Pass. So for them, it's a win. The multi-platform aspect is a win for the original publisher, because that means they get the PlayStation and PC audience on, Steam out the gate. And then you also get like the Switch audience too on top of that, Switch 2 in theory. And then core gamers like us who want to see these classic franchises revived, like Ninja Gaiden, or you could extrapolate it further out to stuff like, I don't know, other classic franchises that are just long dormant, like Dino Crisis, whatever. Maybe for Capcom, they think something like Dino Crisis is too much of a risk. Well, what if Microsoft steps in and says, like, we'll co-publish with you in exchange for the pre-installed Game Pass audience, and we'll offset some of that risk, but you have to give it us. You have to give it us in Game Pass in perpetuity. It has to be permanent content for Game Pass. But we'll still, publish the game on PlayStation and stuff as well. So then you get sort of like, it sort of feeds that Xbox everywhere approach, right? The Neuro Malice in chat says, if we're talking Capcom, might as well bring back Dead Rising. I mean, that's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
You could find like a studio that is looking for a project to do, and then attach them to someone else's IP that someone else isn't actively working on right now. I think Ninja Gaiden could be a great example of where Xbox publishing as an entity is going. Helping publishers bring their content, dormant franchises, back to life in exchange for Game Pass inclusion. I think Silent Hill 2 would have probably fit that mold if Sony hadn't have got there first. But I think that's quite exciting. I think that's really cool. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I mean, it's interesting. And then the tweet you're talking about is from Jared Christian. He says,
right, okay.
This game is the first proof that the path Microsoft is taking with these publishing contracts and releasing it on all platforms will cause more independent developers to pitch to Microsoft. Microsoft will fit the bill, will drop on Xbox and into Game Pass. Developers won't be worried about the single platform lockdown keeping it from being successful. So making games multi-platform will give people access to their games. Because that it will release on everything possible, I know for a fact if I was an independent AAA developer, I would already be trying to call Xbox. For a publishing deal, this is a win for Xbox, a win for developers, and a win for gamers everywhere. I mean,
exactly. So
you can see the point about, like, it even kind of makes something like Killer Instinct more viable. If you wanted to do a Killer Instinct 2, right? It's like, yeah, well...
And I know that's something... I know for a fact that Xbox is actively looking for a way to bring Killer Instinct back. I mean, well, they've said it themselves.
I mean, yeah. So. I mean, somebody's developing it, whether it's Iron Galaxy or a Japanese developer. I think it's being done, but that's also a game that if it was probably just Xbox and PC, I don't know if it does well, because the fighting game community is strictly...
Has to be on PlayStation.
Mostly, so it's like... You release Killer Instinct 2 and just put it everywhere, then it has a really good chance of succeeding and having a long life, because it's going to be in the places where that community exists. And let's even mention, I'll throw a bone to the Banjo Bros. The Banjo Bros out there, always wondering when it's going to be their turn. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? Always seeing these games come back. Being multi-platform, I think also has... Like, if you were just saying before, if it was like, okay, we're going to make Banjo, but can only release it here, and you feel like the Xbox audience doesn't give two shits about Banjo, and it wouldn't sell, then you probably could be concerned about, like, well, do we really want to do this? If we do this, does it really have to be low-key? But if you're going to also release it on Switch and PlayStation, then maybe Banjo becomes... a project that you can spend more money on or get a higher profile developer and do more things with, because there's a better chance of it being successful, right? So there's all that. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how, the multi-platform aspect, does that cause more developers to go to them and be like, hey, we would love to do this. Here's our pitch, because the Ninja Gaiden 4 stuff is from before, right? They were out there
6 years ago.
However
I think.
long it's been, right? So I'd be curious to see how that'd be a question to ask Phil. If you were interviewing him about like stuff like that, but.
Well, that's why Paris is here. Paris is getting intel on what
he's
should ask
listening.
Phil.
He's listening. Good old Collinwood with the 2 says Jez having problems with the USB plug and it's USB-C. Okay.
Yeah. Everything should be USB-C at this point.
Everything, he says. Mo says, here to celebrate this W with y'all. Curious if y'all would be more hyped for what's to come if Xbox had stuck to their original console exclusives plan. I mean, I'm still hyped pretty much regardless. I mean, it's always been games for me, and like seeing the lineup coming this year has me like really excited and happy. Would I be more excited if they were exclusive? It's tough to say. We don't live in that world anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe I would be. Maybe I'd be like, there's a part of me that wonders, like, there's some alternate timeline or a multiverse world out there where everything's the same, but the only difference is that Microsoft wasn't going multi-platform with their games. I'd be really curious to see how, if they did that, what the end result is. Like, if you're putting out this type of content, like if Doom was exclusive and Outer Worlds 2 was, and you put out 10 games this year exclusively on just your console, on PC too, I guess.
Does it move the
Game
needle?
Pass, like, does that change anything? Are people now suddenly storming Best Buys at Black Friday to buy consoles? Are they queuing up on Amazon to buy them? Like, would you see something like a 50% increase in console sales? Like, I did have that thought yesterday when watching the show, being like, if there was a world, how would that play out? Or is this something that's just took too long and people are just kind of stuck where they're at? Because clearly people want the games. Like looking at the comments, they clearly love the fact that which is odd because they called Xbox games shit for so long, but now they're the first ones excited to be playing the games on their PlayStation. So I guess the games weren't shit, but now they're great. So I sort of wonder, are just people just conditioned for so long about, hey, I just spent so much money on this, and it doesn't really matter what another console is going to give me. I just don't really feel the value in buying something else. I don't know. And that's something I guess we'll never really ever know. But it is a fun little like thought exercise to imagine being like, what if? Like what if this didn't happen this way?
I think for them, it's like their thought process is the hardcore audience has already bought the console. The casual audience only wants to play Fortnite. So it doesn't matter what, and they've just bought whatever console they want to play. So their thought is like, the hardcore audience, like, they've already bought the consoles, probably both consoles. I mean, I noticed that a lot of the biggest Xbox haters do also own Xbox consoles, funnily enough. And they always point that out, and they're like, oh, well, I'm not a real hater because I've got both consoles. And it's like, well, okay, well, they're in the demographic of the hardcore who can afford to buy every console, right? And the casuals, they don't care to buy both consoles because they just want to play Fortnite. So I don't think it moves the needle. I think, like, in the post-service game world, these kind of core games, they don't really sell systems like they used to. And only new hardware will sell systems. And I think the only thing that's going to make Xbox's hardware sales go up year over year is a new box, and when's that coming out? It could be a while, Yeah. But it doesn't matter because the install base is there. The install base is stable, and as long as we get in the games, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Basically, to fix it. Sorry.
How do you fix it?
Basically, to fix it, everyone needs to go and have a load of kids and then indoctrinate them to be console gamers instead of iPad kids graduating to PC.
Yeah, PC, the wave. Fantasticals gifted 10 memberships, so thank you very much. And for anybody that got a membership, I hope you enjoy it and make liberal use of those emojis. We have. He also said, "Today is my 39th birthday, so here you go, guys." Well, happy birthday! You
Happy
got
birthday,
one more
dude.
year till you hit that big 4-0. Jez, how
Yep.
many until you hit the big 4-0?
Few months, man. It's this
Oh,
year.
bro, let me tell you,
Wait,
man.
no, it's a lie. 2 years, 2 years.
When you hit that big 4-0,
I forgot how old I was.
when
Yeah,
you
I
hit
got
that
2
big
years
4-0,
left.
let me tell you, man. Let me tell you, things just you go to sleep and you'll wake up and something hurts. Like you'll
Oh, I'm
wake up
already
and it's
there,
like,
dude.
oh my god, my shoulder hurts. How did I
I'm already there,
hurt
man.
my shoulder by sleeping on it wrong? Or my neck hurts, or these pains that used to go away in a day because you're nice and young and whatever, like they last, and it takes a while for them to kind of like fix themselves. Enjoy your 39th birthday. Next year the 40. Yeah. Let's go. Ozzy with the 2 says, "What if Oblivion Shadow drops the June showcase?" I mean, that's a possibility, as we see Microsoft likes doing these shadow drops. I guess we'll know because the 20th anniversary is coming up in March, and Nate had a good kind of thing about, well, what if they announce it as part of the 20th anniversary celebration thing? Here's a trailer, and here's when we're planning on releasing it. June showcase would be cool, right? Show it off, and then immediately play it now. Yeah, I mean, I guess either one works. We got Xbox Expansion Pass Luke in the house saying just supporting you guys rock. Thank you, Luke. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here and listening to the show. We appreciate you. We got Gotham guy with the 10. Having Gears E-Day launch with the next gen console would be ideal. Showcasing the game with next gen Unreal 5 with no limit to resolution and frames will set the standard. I mean, whatever the graphical standard is, I have no doubt the Coalition is going to make a extremely pretty, extremely tech focused. It'll be a game that Digital Foundry like says is the pinnacle outside of Fortnite, is probably the pinnacle of UE5 or whatever. I can already see the headlines. They are wizards when it comes to that stuff. But, the thing with like launching with next gen consoles is like, when's the next console coming? There's speculation that it's next year. If not next year, then 2027. I don't know. It's like one of those things where you never know. And if it is next year, then maybe having Gears as a launch title is beneficial. But if they were targeting 2025, like Tom says, then that's just maybe when the game's finished. Do you hold on to the game for a whole year just to like hope to launch it with your next gen plans or whatever? I don't know. I was just kind of looking at the idea of like, okay, if Gears E-Day's this year, and then you have this stacked back half of the year, something probably getting overlooked. And I don't know which game it would be, because I don't even know where you put it. It's like there's a chance like Xbox has like a game literally every month. Like outside of January and March, April's accounted for, May's accounted for, June looks like it'll be accounted for, so you probably won't have anything in July. But maybe you release the Gears collection stuff in August, and then you just run Outer Worlds 2, Ninja Gaiden, Call of Duty, Fable. Like where do you slot in? Like, even if like Forza Horizon 6 was ready, where would you even put it? Do you even need it? Like, if you are really doing 2026 new hardware, do you launch that with like a Gears 6 Forza Horizon 6 combo or Gears Z-Day Forza Horizon 6 combo? Like, here's your game for the super hardcore that's been waiting for Gears, super graphically demanding because it's UE5 and Coalition. And then, something you could argue outside of Minecraft, their biggest IP, Forza Horizon 6. Those could be your fall games. And then throughout, leading up to the year, you could have something like State of Decay 3 or Clockwork Revolution or, Everwild or whatever else, is planned for 2026, right? It's, yeah, I don't know.
It's crazy that we're in this world just discussing like the vast amount of possibilities, and there's so many that we haven't even mentioned. It's like so many.
Yeah.
Where's Contraband? And where's like the game, some of the other second party games that are being worked on, like People Can Fly. There's rumors of IO Interactive having a game. Kind of crazy, bro. How we live in this world now. Do you like living in this world?
Yeah, it's great. It's very great.
Is it lit?
It is lit. Battered Haddock with the 5 says, loving your work, Cowboys, and an extra happy birthday to Fantasticals. Yes, happy birthday to Fantasticals. Phase 23 BKNY with the $20. For Ninja Gaiden alone, I would have bought a Series X if it was exclusive. Yeah, but you got money, Face. You're always throwing money around. So you buying a console just for one game, it's not that surprising to me. But everyone's not in your position. So that sort of also reminds me of how some people used to say, I would have bought an Xbox One for Scalebound. And then I always just kind of be like, yeah, sure you would have. You know what I mean? And it's kind of funny because it's Platinum Games as well. It's like, it's repeated itself. Sith Lord, member for 34 months, or 24 months. When you cancel 9 games and no roadmap, any games coming look good to PlayStation fans right now. Doom looks awesome. $200 collector's edition order. Yeah, you're gonna get the 12 inches of the Slayer.
12 inches of the Slayer.
12 inches of the Slayer. Man.
I've got the I didn't get Doom Eternal collector's edition, but I did get the Doom 2016 collector's edition. I don't have physical space. I've run out of room for collector's editions. I think I'd have to like get rid of another one of my collector's editions. I just bought that Fallout TV show. I bought the Fallout TV show Pip-Boy. Have you seen that? The Fallout TV show Pip-Boy, the silver one?
Yes.
With the radio in and stuff. It's so cool.
How much is
it? And I
unboxed.
Oh, it's $200, I think.
Oh, bro. How much was your Lilith statue?
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that? Okay.
It was $800.
For the Lilith statue for a game that nobody plays anymore? Yikers, bro.
Dude, people play it, man. I mean, the new season's been pretty popular so far, bro. But yeah, suffering from success with collector's editions, But they bring me joy. That's the main thing, right? That's the main thing. I've got the Fallout 76 Pip-Boy. I've never unboxed it, and I got this Fallout TV show Pip-Boy, and I was like, where shall I put this thing? I couldn't figure out where to put it. It's like, I was like, yeah, okay, I need to stop buying this shit. So it's just sort of awkwardly planted on my bedside table at the moment until I can figure out what the hell to do with it. But yeah, did treat myself for that year quite a bit after I got my big promotion. But yeah.
One of the things I'm focusing on this year is being healthier, right?
Yeah.
And the holidays kind of screwed with me a little bit. I don't know what it is. It's like for anybody else, but for me, I talked with you behind the scenes about this, but for me, like dieting and eating right, I can do it, but it's more of a mental thing for me than anything else. Like if I'm not in the mental headspace of, like I'm only eating this, like I tend to. I'm not even like saying, well, yeah, I overeat, but I was doing so well, and then the holidays hit, and suddenly everyone's like Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinner and all this stuff, and it really just threw me off my game, where
Yeah.
like I was doing so well, and then all that happened, and I kind of was like eating stuff I shouldn't have. But now I'm back in that headspace finally, and I'm doing good and losing weight. So I sort of just hate the holidays just for that. And like people that were like, "Oh, I want to, Thanksgiving dinner," and I'm like, "No, I don't want it." And they're like, "Oh, come on, just eat some." It's just like, "All right, fine." And then it really just screwed me up for like 2 months, because then
Yeah, I'm the
Christmas
same
came and
way.
everything, right? But now it's like end of January, and I'm finally back on track. I'm finally at the point where I'm just eating the things I was eating before and doing well, and but I don't know if anybody feels like that sometimes, like for dieting and all that stuff, that it's like a mental thing, because it is for me. And I remember how I talked about like Pavlov dogged myself, right? Like where you like can teach a dog with the bell and it'll come for food. They call it like Pavlov's whatever. I forget the exact name for
Pavlov.
it. Yeah, where it's like you ring a bell and then you feed the dog. So anytime like you ring the bell, the dog's mouth starts to water because he associates the bells with the food, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anytime I would watch something on streaming service or watch a new movie or a TV show, I always would order something to eat. So anytime I wanted to watch something, I would sit there and I would be like, I'm gonna watch something, and in my mind, I'm like, got to get something to eat, because basically, you know what I mean. So I started to finally like break myself from that, where I would start like every night I start watching like an episode of TV that I want to watch, but just one. So I don't like feel the. So I was like, I'm like not gonna order anything because I'm only gonna be doing this for like 45 minutes instead of like a 2-hour show or watching 3 hours of TV back to back to back. So I'm like trying to break myself out of this thought process and this feeling of watching something and then immediately feeling the need to order food, because that's just what I've done for years. So, trying to be better. 2025, Rand trying to be better. New year, new Rand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I need to really break out of that mindset. I'm just not. I haven't been in the mindset since the summer, I think. I lost a bunch of weight before I went to E3. And then after E3, I was like, okay, E3 done now. I can put it all back on, you know? So, I don't know. It's tough, man.
Yeah. We have Sauce May Dragon with the 9.99. Rand, you're a Ninja Gaiden, and that's okay. It's 2025, I get it. But for all the Ninja Gaidens like me and Jez, can you please call the game Ninja Gaiden one time? Don't block me, bro. Yeah,
Wait, what?
I had that conversation with Colt yesterday when we were talking about Ninja Gaiden, and he was like, "It's Ninja Gaiden." I'm like, "Yeah, I know what it is. I know the proper
Wait, is
way to
it?
say it." Well, yeah, it's Ninja Gaiden,
Oh,
but sometimes when I just speak or when I speak fast, I'll mispronounce words. It's one of the reasons why people like me, because I'm just whatever. But
quirky.
yeah, I don't know. When I just say a name, I just say a word.
Quirky
It's like
Rand.
Ninja Gaiden. It's just like I know it's Ninja Gaiden, but if I like slow down and think about it, I'll say it the correct way. It's
I
funny that
won't.
someone called me out for
calling,
it.
I'm just going to call it Ninja Gaiden forever. Because
Okay.
it's Raiden? Gaiden. No?
Gaiden.
I don't know.
Face with the 199. PS6 November 2027 release. Is this insider face with PS6 release information? Man, you're moving up in the world, bro, if you already know when Sony's planning on releasing it. What makes you think 2027? Just because? Or 2028? You don't want it to be 2028 because Xbox might release something in 2026, and then your PS5 Pro won't be the most powerful console out there, and you'll be upset about that for a couple years? Or what's
I want to ask you something about that on the topic. I've seen a lot of people complaining about the PS5 Pro.
what in what manner?
Well, I saw a thread someone posted about how Silent Hill 2 is worse on the PS5 Pro or something. Like, has issues.
Yeah,
I don't know how.
there was quite a few games that came well, apparently the PSSR resolution stuff, some developers had issues with, so they would release patches for the games, and they looked worse than their PS4, PS5 counterparts.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't really follow that stuff. I don't have a PS5 Pro, so it's not something I'm like looking for information about. But yeah, I mean that has been a thing. Some developers have patched it and stuff, but I don't know. Sith Lord says 46 days till I turn 40. God help me, I don't want to. Oh, 40 years. Well, enjoy it while it lasts. The 30s. Deku with the 50. Thank you. He says, thank you guys for making my Fridays better than they already are. I work second shift, so my workday starts off perfectly with you guys. Awesome. Hopefully, thinking about that, you're working second shift, usually 8 hours. Hell, you listen to us, and half of your shift is already gone by the time we end, usually. That's pretty great.
I saw a thread on Reddit where someone was like, hey, I'm new to the Xbox ecosystem, I'm looking for some podcasts. And people were like recommending Xbox 2 and stuff, which was really nice for one thing. But like most of the people were like, yeah, I listen to Xbox 2 at work because it takes up the whole day. Yeah, I'm a truck driver. I listen to Xbox 2 because it makes the drive go better because it's so fucking long. Stuff like that. Although it's nice to have that niche, which is the niche is basically the podcast too fucking long. Oh man, I get people at Xbox complain to me, like people in the PR segment, because one of the things Xbox does, they in PR and marketing is like they'll try to at least summarize, what the media has been saying, the media, YouTubers, podcasts, like what are the narratives going out there, and they're like Xbox 2 is such a pain because it's so long.
Hey, there are timestamps. There's timestamps if you want to listen to the whole thing. I mean, you know what I mean? It's
but
funny
hey,
because,
like Google's rolling out AI summaries now as well, right?
Yeah, I know. Phil's complained about the show being too long.
Yeah. He said in LA, he said
4 hours, really? Hey, you got to give the people what you want,
Yeah.
But yeah, Phil complained about the length of the show.
Bless him.
Hey, we're just trying to make everybody's day go by smoother and better. That's what we're here for. Akusune Arcade with the 5. Imagine being on a diet and going back to your family for the holidays in southern Italy. I feel you, Rand. Let's keep it up. I'm sure that's really tough. And Amish AI says, me 52 days to finish my first 40 years childhood. Oh, man.
Damn. Oh my god!
Oh my god! Face, you didn't have.
Oh my god!
Face with the $400 super chat. You didn't have to do his face. Go buy a PS5 Pro so you can play the best version of Ghost of Yotai at launch. Would have said 500, but super chat says you can only put out 500 spending limit in a day. Like I said, I mean, I appreciate it, bro. You're always supportive the show. He. Face was the actual, person who actually.
Oh my god!
He super chatted and gave me money to buy the PS4 Pro originally back in 2017. So he's always listening and he's always supported the show monetarily, which is great.
Jesus,
and if he donates to buy the PS5 Pro, then I mean, that's what he says it's for. So am I gonna have to buy the PS5 Pro? I don't know.
Man, I need to. Oh wait, wrong one. Fuck. I was trying to give Face a round of applause. Where is it? There it is.
Round of applause.
Thank you, Face.
That's crazy. Ghost of Yotai.
I don't know what Face's job is.
I don't know.
I think he works on a.
Not only does he got a lot of money because he'll buy everything, but he also knows the inner workings of PlayStation because he told us November 2027 for the release date of the PS6. So
maybe Face is Jim Ryan.
What if he's Herman Holst?
Oh shit! Damn.
Damn. What if he's the newly retired Ted Price?
Yeah, true.
Because Ted Price finally left Insomniac, and Insomniac now has 3 CEOs. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah, three co-leaders, something like that.
Something like that. I don't know. BT Maverick says with the two, Rand, I think you got to buy the Pro now. I mean, with the donation, I might have to. How much is the Pro? It's like $700 though.
Oh, one for me.
PS5 Pro for $700. Well,
I could buy a 4090.
maybe I'll get it. Maybe I'll get it when Ghost of Yotai gets closer to release, whenever that happens.
Put it towards a 4090, bro. Need a new doorstep.
I have a 4090.
5090.
Oh, get the 5090? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need a 5090? The 4090 is just good. I mean, I think there's only a 25% increase between them, and it's like not a lot of games even really use the power of that stuff, so I'm good if I ever want to play on PC. All right, let's talk about the Xbox Direct, shall we? Since I'm sure a lot of people want to hear our thoughts on this. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to this first time or listening to this and you're just not subscribed, make sure you do so. It's free. You don't have to spend any money. It's free. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody listening on Spotify and iTunes, which Jez will have this up on that sometime tomorrow morning, probably.
Yeah. The reason it's always slow on Spotify and iTunes compared to YouTube is because it has to finish processing on YouTube before I can download it.
Yeah.
So I usually get it the next day when I wake up, but I'll get that uploaded as soon as possible.
So, Microsoft announced the Dev Direct 2 weeks ago. A lot of speculation about what might be shown. Microsoft was they were promoting this mystery game, a secret game that you had put out in an article was a legendary Japanese IP, a new entry.
Yes.
And
new entry in a legendary Japanese IP.
Yeah. There was a lot of scuttlebutt. I mean, Tom Henderson even talked about how there's a lot of scuttlebutt, like he heard Gears Remaster and Final Fantasy games and whatnot. But none of that really came true. We had I guess technically 5 games at the showcase. Give me your overall thoughts, Jez, before we talk about each individual thing. I want to hear your thoughts about the presentation of the Dev Direct itself and all that stuff.
I thought it was really, really well done. I thought it was fantastic. Like Tina Amini and the team there are doing an amazing job. I think like what it really felt like to me was like it was fast paced and it kind of gave me the impression of it's like we are serious about this, because there's so many so many narratives out there about like, oh, Xbox is, man, who said it recently? Someone said something like Satya wants to wind Xbox down and stuff.
Oh, that was a report from the information from last week, which we talked about on Friday.
Yeah.
Which they came out and basically said wasn't true. One of the things they denied.
Load of bullshit. And that event, which obviously they've had that completed since before the information's ironically named publication, the information there. Before that article came out, they would have had that done. And it was like, yeah, we are absolutely serious about this. This, we mean business. And we are finally, after the pandemic and everything else, delivering on all the things you bloody asked us to deliver on, which is higher quality games, and all the rest of it. So I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was exactly what Xbox needed to show, given all the drama over the last year, all the uncertainty. And I suppose like there's still a hardware component that we need to see revealed in full, but the time it'll happen, in due time. So yeah, for me it was that was an A star event.
Yeah.
Loved every second of it. Every game looked great. There wasn't a question mark over a single game there. They all looked fantastic. All gameplay footage. Not a bad word to say, man. Not a bad word to say, man.
Yeah, they've nailed this. And we used to give them so much shit for the Inside Xboxes back in the day. Because the Inside Xboxes, for lack of a better word, sucked. They absolutely sucked. Right? You had 10 minutes of content that you stretched out to an hour. And it was
I
so
think
apparent, and it's just one of those things where I get wanting to have a show, but when you have nothing to talk about and you're just stretching things and interviewing people about nothing, it's just like you're just wasting people's time. And
yeah, I really think like part of that is just they didn't have the content, you know,
sure,
because it was all the shit going on and the restructure and the pandemic and the content wasn't flowing and but now we've got to that point where it's like we're post pandemic now and the games are coming and there is content there and in fact there's so much content that we can have a show that has a much better, much more consistent flow to it where it's just like the devs are talking but you're seeing a lot of raw gameplay and the things the devs are saying are like quite rapid, fast paced, and sort of like give you a good overview and a good insight without being long and drawn out, like you said. So I thought it was great.
well, yeah. So Tina Amini doing God's work with these, the dev directs and the showcases, because ever since she took over that stuff, the showcases have also been great, and a lot of it has to do with content too. Like when you have a lot of games to show, but it's how it's put together. And you sort of hit it on the nail on the head. And I talked about it in my video with the idea of the reason I think these are so good is because it threads the needle of just the perfect amount of people speaking and seeing the people behind the games and motherfucking gameplay. It's because normally when you get sort of these presentations, they're just trailers. They're maybe cutscenes from a game or they're CGI and it's not real gameplay. And like it sometimes it's exciting to watch a showcase and just being like, here's 30 trailers, but then it's like how much of that is actual gameplay? I mean, even with like Fable, for example, there's like doubt of what Fable actually plays like because there's only been glimpses of it, right? And other games will come out and they'll have a cutscene or a CGI, like the game we talked about last week from Rogue Wolves, the CD Projekt Red people, the Dawnwalker game, the Blood of the Dawnwalker. And it's like, yeah, that game looks cool, but I don't really know what the game looks like because it was kind of a CGI cutscene or a cutscene within the game or whatever the hell it was. It certainly wasn't gameplay, even though you got to the end. And it's like you can only get so excited for, at least for me, and I want to talk about that, so I talk about it from like my perspective or my opinion. It's like you can only get so excited for something like when it's just that. But there is just something powerful about even like a game's first reveal, like Ninja Gaiden 4, and not just the trailer, but like a whole sort of inside look at the game, like where you're like, that is what I'm going to be playing later this year. And sure, it probably has the HUD turned off, but that is the game. I love that. Like that it's like we're going to just show you a bunch of raw gameplay, and then here's the people making the game and talking about their vision for what it is and all the other things that go into it. And they've taken the Nintendo Direct format, which I think something everybody said. Nintendo has basically...
What we asked them to do.
Well, yeah, it was like Nintendo Directs were the gold standard, right? Because it was just short, charming, whatever superlative you want to use to describe those. And I sometimes feel that Xbox or Microsoft is just like, we have to do things different simply because we can't just copy. So they do the Inside Xbox and they have hosts and they have the hosts sitting in the chairs and they got these interviews, but they don't have the content and it's just lame. And it was like, just do that. Like the blueprint is right in front of you. Just do that, but make it your own. And then PlayStation did the same thing. They did the Nintendo Direct, but they called it the State of Play. And, they put their own twist on it, but it's super similar. And here you have the Dev Direct, and it is like a Nintendo Direct, but it's more behind the scenes sort of stuff, more interviews with developers, more gameplay. So it's like they essentially took the format and put their own spin on it, and it absolutely works. It's great. And
yeah,
it's just really refreshing to just sit down there and watch 10 minutes of people talking about how excited they are for a game, and then seeing the game being played. It's like, all right,
Rapid
like
fire.
that gets me great. That gets me hyped, right? And that's what this developer direct did. Just talking about the presentation aspect is like, love it. And it's like when you move on to the games, which we'll talk about right now. Normally, Jez, surprise stuff is supposed to be the last thing. It's supposed to be the tap on the shoulder. It's supposed to be we have one more thing for you. They literally just jumped off right in the beginning with it, right? They've been touting this mystery game, this secret game, which, look, I don't like spoiling stuff for people, and I know I'm Randall prediction because there are some stuff on low, and then I'll throw on predictions. But honestly, I could have told you guys it was Ninja Gaiden 3 weeks ago. And when we even talked about it when they revealed the Dev Direct, I told you I wasn't even going to guess. Because I couldn't do my normal Randall prediction. Because if I did, you guys would be like, why is Rand predicting Ninja Gaiden? That's such an odd choice. So I was just like, I'm not even going to say anything. And, because I don't want to spoil stuff, because I also don't want to, necessarily always get spoiled either. But it really seemed like everybody, for whatever reason, everybody knew it was Ninja Gaiden, or a lot of people knew it was Ninja Gaiden. I'm happy that you listened to me and didn't spoil it for people. Because I think there was even still amount of healthy skepticism that they were actually doing a Ninja Gaiden 4, considering they just revealed a new Ninja Gaiden game at the Game Awards from the Blasphemous devs, like the 2D one, right? So there was like,
yes.
are they really doing another Ninja Gaiden game? And they click on the box, and it's Xbox Game Studios Publishing, and you're like, wait, global publishing? We haven't really seen anything from them in a while. I mean, Contraband, I believe, is a global publishing game. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that, because isn't technically Flight Sim a global publishing game? I guess, is Our History Untold a global publishing game? Either way,
technically.
I guess,
and Towerborn too, I suppose.
Yeah, like something like Contraband is a global publishing game. So it's like, oh wow, whatever this secret game is, it's published by Microsoft, which is crazy. And then you see the rough waves, and you immediately know it's Team Ninja. Like, come on, that intro is like, all right. And it's Ninja Gaiden 4. And take it away, Jez. I want to hear your thoughts about it, because we haven't talked about any of this, so I don't know what you think about any of this stuff.
Well, I'm playing Ninja Gaiden Sigma right now, actually, because and like when I found out it was Ninja Gaiden a little, not as long as 3 weeks ago, but maybe a couple of weeks ago, week and a bit ago, I started playing Ninja Gaiden for the first time, because I've never really played it. I've never played Ninja Gaiden. I never really owned it. And then I noticed, like, all of them are on Game Pass. All of them are on cloud. All of them are Xbox Play Anywhere. So I was like, they sure do got a very pervasive partnership with Koei Tecmo already on Ninja Gaiden, right? So I thought I'll go and try it out. And I think it's fantastic. It's super fun. Like, even though it's like, it's an older game, I think it still totally holds up, even today. I'm someone who's pretty, willing to play older games and enjoy them for what they are, though, so your mileage may vary. But I think, like, if you did go and gave the classic Ninja Gaiden games a go, then you'll enjoy it. But obviously there's also Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which just came out. That might be a better place to start. Some people, I know, Lanzo86 in chat says don't play Sigma. I've seen that sentiment online where people like they don't like the Sigma versions of the games for whatever reason.
I guess the Sigma versions of the games, I think, nerfed the spawn rates of enemies, I want to say.
Oh, right.
I think they made the game easier, is what it was. Something like that. I don't know. I didn't really play any of the Sigma versions of the games. Like, I played Ninja Gaiden on the OG Xbox, and I played Ninja Gaiden 2 on the 360. I didn't even play 3, so I have no idea what happens in Ninja Gaiden 3 or Ninja Gaiden 3, rather.
Yeah. Well, I'm enjoying Sigma for what it is. A lot of people say Black's the best version, but there is also you can also play the backwards compatible version of Ninja Gaiden Black on Xbox as well. So there's a smorgasbord of Ninja Gaiden you can try out.
2025's year of the ninja, Jez.
It sure is, yeah. So yeah, so for me, like, I wasn't super into the franchise, but I think it looks fantastic, and one of the reasons that I am particularly excited for this incarnation of the game is because a lot of the team that worked on Metal Gear Rising is apparently part of this team, and Metal Gear Rising is one of, if not, the best ninja hack and slash game.
You're speaking my language now. Speaking my language.
Dude. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance is just, it's so good.
Yes,
like,
I was so disappointed good. We never got a sequel to that. Rules of Nature! Anybody that's played that game knows exactly what I'm talking about. Oh my god, the music in that game? Holy... And the other thing I talk about, Metaphor? Oh, the music in Metaphor. Oh my god, the battle theme. Jeez, the music in that game is so great. Never gets old listening to it. Yeah, man, you make me want to play Metal Gear. Like, watching that stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking about
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, bro. Like, seriously, like.
Yeah, I'm thinking about playing it myself, and but this is it. It's like, with all the drama that was going on around Platinum, with Kamiya leaving and
a lot of people leaving.
A lot of people leaving. Kamiya supposedly harvesting out some of the team to take over to this new Clover studio. Sounds like there was a lot of internal turmoil at Platinum Games, and they did put out some real stinkers and sort of created this impression of a studio that like had big consistency issues. Like that, they went from Nier Automata, which is like one of the best hack and slash games of its time, and Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, which again, one of the best hack and slash games of its time, and also Bayonetta, which is obviously like huge game in its own right, huge franchise. And then they went from that, and then I can't even remember the name of the games that were terrible, but there was like a string of games from them that were just not good. Licensed stuff, and then there was a whole Scalebound debacle. And like, so with Scalebound, it was like, man, Microsoft and Platinum are probably never going to work together again, ever, Yeah. So it's kind of like, and I haven't even mentioned the game yet. I haven't really talked about the game. The story of the game is super interesting. Just, also the aspect, because Ninja Gaiden was famously on the original Xbox as one of those kind of games Microsoft used to pitch its platform back in the day. And so it's really cool seeing it all come full circle. Just the story of the game, like when I was researching it. And but the game itself I thought it looked absolutely fantastic. Looks I like me some hyper violence. And it looks stylish as hell. It's yeah, man, just looks really, really good,
dude.
And I'm kind of in my sort of, I'm really big on Japanese games right now. I really think Japan is really outclassing Western developers generally at the moment. So like a lot of there was like a few years where it felt like Japanese games have really dropped off, and like I'm thinking of like the Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 6 era, where it felt like developers were bending over backwards to figure out how to, thinking they had to appeal to the West by changing their games, but then they were like, oh, actually, now we can just be ourselves, and and now it's like everyone wants the Japanese versions of those games. They don't want the westernized stuff, right? So it's so hype, man. It's so hype, so awesome, and I also think it's a testament to the work that Microsoft's been doing in Japan. No, I can never remember her name. Is it Mina Kato? Mina
I think so.
Sato?
Yeah.
I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But her team's been doing some amazing work to rebuild Xbox's footprint in Japan. And I think part of it is, relinquishing exclusivity. Part of it is
Yeah,
because
but when
obviously
they
Xbox doesn't have
they signed this game, it was probably meant to be an exclusive, though. Well, presumably.
Mm,
I mean, maybe not with Koei
maybe.
Tecmo owning the Ninja Gaiden IP, but
There's also like Xbox has no footprint in Japan and probably never will. So I think sometimes like you just have to kind of concede that some games need to be multi-platform. Like even before all this multi-platform discourse and all this drama, we were saying that Killer Instinct, or at least I did. I said Killer Instinct needs to be multi-platform. Then if they do it again, it has to be multi-platform because that's where the fighting game community is. It's on Nintendo Switch, it's on PlayStation, and it's not big enough by itself on Xbox. But yeah, I thought Ninja Gaiden looked really, really good. But I really want to go through all the previous games first because, story and stuff.
right.
Because this is one thing I wasn't sure about when I was researching this game. I wasn't sure, is this going to be a reboot, a remake, or an actual true sequel? So turns out it is a sequel, which means continuation of the story in essence.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of just wanting to go through all the classic games and learn more about who the characters are and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But
bro.
how did you feel about it?
Oh man, like
Do you have a lot of history with
well,
this,
like I
the
told you, I
franchise?
played Ninja Gaiden on OG Xbox, and
Mm.
I played Ninja Gaiden 2 in 2008 when it came out, and I do have a history with Platinum Games. Like you mentioned, Platinum, they put out some amazing hack and slash stuff. Metal Gear
Mm.
Rising: Revengeance is one of my favorite games of the 360 generation. Bayonetta is a game that I consider like a masterpiece. Vanquish, even though that's not like swords and stuff like that, it's still like an action game that was incredible. Nier Automata, amazing game, right?
Mm.
And so it's like, one, you get the shocker that it's Xbox publishing the game. Two, you get the shocker that it's holy shit, it's a brand new Ninja Gaiden. And then three, it's Platinum Games making it. And, all with all the recent turmoil, like you mentioned, Kamiya leaving and stuff, and it's like, oh, but wait a minute, like Platinum's doing this? And then you think, and then you're watching it like, oh yeah, this really does look like a Platinum game. And then you're thinking, in my head, I'm like, which Platinum were we going to get? Because they are one of the most, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of developers out there where you get their A team or their A effort, it's like a masterpiece. But then you get, the other ones, and then, I think I used the term in my video, like excrement, right? Because you'll get stuff like Babylon's Fall, which was awful by all accounts and I think turned off after like 6 months. You get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game that they made that was also very bad. Legends of Korra, like some of those games were just awful. But then they have like these great, amazing stuff. So it's like, all right, which one we getting, right? And just judge. That's why it's great to see the gameplay, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, dude, hyper violent, frenetic, fast pace, like cutting off like limbs and heads and blood spurting everywhere and parrying. I'm just like, this is what I want. It's like like the setting, kind of like almost a futuristic Tokyo cybernetic thing going on, like that one boss they showed. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay. And I started to think to myself when they showed off the character and it wasn't Ryu, I'm like, oh, oh man, I bet you they're gonna get a lot of shit for having a new character. Like, are we gonna get like a Metal Gear Solid 2 thing here, where you're thinking you're like, all right, I'm gonna be playing as Snake, but you're really playing as Raiden, and I'm like, oh, we got a new character. I wonder how the fans are gonna react to that.
Hmm.
And no, Ryu's still in the game. Ryu still in the game, still doing his Inzu drop, and I know I'm probably mispronouncing all the names, but it's like, all right, so he's in the game, and this other character's in the game, and you have this like two protagonist thing going on, right? Which is going to be fun. So I'm gonna imagine you're going to be playing as both, right? But dude, like, I loved everything that they showed, and I'm not like a super huge like Ninja Gaiden is the greatest thing ever. Like, I enjoy the games for what they are, and I've enjoyed a lot of Platinum's games. So like seeing that stuff, I'm just like, yo, sign me the F up. And then the best part is, it's this year. It's not something you got to wait 2 years for. It's not something they're like, oh, cool, I can't wait to play that in 2027. Or I can't wait to play that in 2028. You know how some games take forever? It's like, no, it's fall this year. So, you might only have to wait 8 months. Right? And we're probably going to see it again at the showcase or whatever. And it's like, bro, I can play this year? Like, how crazy is that? How crazy is it not only like Xbox going out there and saying in years previous about, no, we have some deals we've made with Japanese publishers to make games. And every year that goes by, you don't see it. And you're like, well, were they lying? Did these deals kind of just stop? But like, no, like this one's been in the work for a while. They even credited Phil of kind of working to bring everybody together, right? Because you got Team Ninja, who's the normal developer for this, but Koei Tecmo owns the IP. Clearly, like, Team Ninja was probably too busy, and Platinum's really good at this. So it's like, okay, you're bringing all these people together. It's like, is this like Xbox's redemption arc with Platinum? It makes me wonder if Scalebound really was in development at Platinum before Kamiya left, and Kamiya leaving maybe killed that game. And now, I start to think of like, does Xbox have any other projects from Japanese developers? Because they mentioned how they did. So can we expect more from that?
Maybe Xbox is publishing Final Fantasy 17.
Wouldn't that be something? That'd be funny.
That'd be a coup.
Yeah, dude, like, super impressed with Ninja Gaiden. And they did have the one more thing where they were like, you can play Ninja Gaiden 2 Black right now. And dude, have you seen the comparison screenshots and videos from?
No, not really.
What a major upgrade, bro. That would kind of made me think about what Oblivion could look like. Thinking like, okay, well, you took that 360 game, which technically released 2 years after Oblivion, and now you're using Unreal Engine 5, and look how good this looks. Now I'm thinking like, oh, what could Oblivion look like? And it's just like, hey, have fun waiting for Ninja Gaiden 4, but in the meantime, yo, you can play this game today. A $50 game, just drop it into Game Pass like it's nothing. Just available right now. You can play it. You could buy it elsewhere, but you could play it in Game Pass. Although I guess there is one caveat, which I think you wrote an article about it today, that Microsoft definitely needs to fix. And this has also been a problem with their whole PC push. And one of the reasons why I'm not confident about their idea of like competing with Steam or whatever is that sometimes the versions of their games on their store just aren't up to speed with the Steam versions, right? So what's going on with that, Jez?
I'm not sure exactly why this is happening, but I've got a sneaking suspicion.
Okay.
I think what it is that the Xbox version of the game is like UWP or whatever. And that's the version on the Microsoft Store. It's basically the Xbox version or whatever. And because of that, obviously Xbox doesn't have DLSS because then it's an AMD or whatever. And an old AMD chip at that. And that's something to do with why some of those features aren't there. the more dedicated PC features. Now, I don't have any evidence for that. It's just kind of like a theory. It's just a theory.
Okay.
A film theory. No, but I'm trying to find out exactly what's going on. But it's like you said though, this isn't the first time this has happened. Like another game I'm investigating it recently is because someone DM'd me about it and they were like, Jez, do you know anything about why Forspoken on the Microsoft Store, for example, is versions behind on Steam? Death Stranding had this issue too until they, released the recent version. Because Death Stranding was on Xbox already, in one incarnation, and published by 505 Games. You remember, Rand?
Yes. Yes, I remember.
And then Death Stranding released the director's cut, which had a bunch of extra content, new features and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, the Microsoft Store never got that version, and it went by years without having that version until the Xbox version dropped. So there is all this sort of like weirdness going on, I think, with the Microsoft Store. But this is kind of the issue. Like, if you're trying to build confidence in your store, you can't have this kind of shit happening, bro.
Pretty much, 100%. Like, if you can't have the situation where like your version of the PC stuff is not up to snuff compared to the other stuff. Granted, like, you have the free version because it's Game Pass, but I mean, come on. I don't know. Look, I'm not a PC guy, but is this really that difficult? I don't understand. Like, I don't know. Every time I see that sort of stuff about how, the versions in the Windows Store are outdated compared to Steam, I just shake my head and be like, you want to be the leader and we want to grow on PC? Well, you're going to have to do what Steam does and then go beyond what Steam does.
No.
Essentially. And you can't just half-ass the effort. And, it's just like, until you understand that, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know how you could, like, hey, we got Ninja Gaiden, and we got it in Game Pass, and it's this huge thing, and people are super excited about Xbox this year and all this stuff. And then it's like, oh, it's available for Game Pass. All right, let me go check it out. I'm gonna go to the Windows Store, and you get it, and it's just like, it's missing features that it does have on the other store. It's like, that needs to be rectified if you ever want to do anything meaningful in the PC space. So
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'll try and find out the exact reason why. And I do suspect it's something to do with UWP or Xbox Play Anywhere. And it's kind of like, well, is it a trade-off kind of thing? But you'd hope that they could do both. Where it's like, it's Xbox Play Anywhere, but the system is smart enough to know, okay, I'm a PC version. I'm going to switch on DLSS or whatever, or NVIDIA Reflex and all those, unique NVIDIA features, which Xbox obviously doesn't have because it's an AMD system. But I don't know. It is what it is, man.
I do got a couple super chats I want to read. We got Z-Man Huber with the 5. I accidentally learned how to cook, added more fat and other changes to the diet, and lost 45 pounds. I'd love to give you advice if you want. Sure. DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open. Just hit me up on Twitter, and love to see whatever advice you have. Amish AI says, I'd give the Developer Direct a 9 out of 10 and would give 10 out of 10 if they announced 12 live service games. Oh, you. Noob Sabat says with the 5, Japanese games are great because they just make them fun. Ideology is getting pushed. Jay Foley with the 20. As someone that owns a PC and PS5, I get the best of all three worlds. I care more about how good the product is over what platform. Xbox is doing great. It's sad if PlayStation would announce one God of War game. Xbox would get kicked to the curb. Okay. And Senior Bean with the 5. Black Ops 6 DLSS was broken at launch on the Windows Store and Steam, but worked on BNet.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Interesting.
Something weird going on there. I'll try and find out the exact reason, but yeah, it is what it is.
So yeah, that's Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden. Sounds like me and Jez are both
Gaiden.
yeah, are both super excited about the game. Can't wait to play at the end of the year. I'm just thinking about, like I said, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which is like some of the vibes I got from that, and how much I love that game, and then Bayonetta and all that stuff. So it's like it's gonna climb up to my most anticipated list. But we had a game that that showed up next that a lot of people were looking forward to, because even though we've seen a lot of the game in recent weeks and months with the documentary and some clips on Twitter, we really wanted that like full blowout, and South of Midnight was the second game.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about this? Because you should lead here, because you are Mr. Compulsion Skeptical, and
right
to the point where you said, don't know why Microsoft even bought them.
Yes, I did. I was like, Contrast and you bought the Contrast and We Happy Few people? Poor K. Poor K. So there's a lot that I do like about South of Midnight. And here's what I'm going to say, because I don't think Xbox did the game a lot of favors in the showcase. And I'll get to my point in just a minute. I really dig the art style and the stop motion stuff. And I think the story is going to be really cool, because, I don't know if we've ever really had a game set in like the southern, where it's based around like Southern Gothic stuff, but like the folklore. And I don't really know much of the folklore of, the South. So I'm really keen to kind of get into the game and see what story they're going to tell.
Is Chicago not in the South?
No, it's definitely not. No, it's not the South. It's very much like North. I
love pretending I don't know.
I like the world. I like how it looks. The like kind of for lack of a better word, Metroidvania aspects the game does seem to have with your powers. You earn some points, you unlock some things, you can see the cooldowns when you do the combat with the different abilities, and flying around in the swamp and then conjuring up objects and stuff like that. Nice, bright and colorful, which it's cool. Like, okay, that's a different type of game. It's not normally one that I play all the time, but looking forward to it. Where Xbox did this game a disservice, in my opinion, is having it come after Ninja Gaiden 4. Because, and what I mean by that, no, it's not because it's a tough act to follow. It's because Ninja Gaiden's all about high energy hack and slash pairing, where the combat is the focus, and it looks really good. It looks high level. It looks super stylish, right? But then they're also showing combat of South of Midnight. And I'm sorry, as much as I'm looking forward to South of Midnight, and I feel it was an odd choice to go from Ninja Gaiden 4's combat to South of Midnight's, because it made South of Midnight's look generic. Or maybe a better word is pedestrian. Like the combat specifically, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm curious about the story and the world and everything that they're doing within South of Midnight. And the combat is always something like, when I was looking at it, I'd be like, okay, that could be cool. Like, you got the powers and your abilities and you're doing all this stuff. I just, when watching this back to the games, it just was like, here's Ninja Gaiden 4 and how cool the combat looks. And here's South of Midnight and how much slower it is. And I'm like, that's a choice. I don't know if like the direct comparisons of both back to back is really, because it was immediately like something I just picked up on right away when they were talking about the combat. I was just like, Ninja Gaiden looks a lot better. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who feels that way about that specific, and it's like a small criticism I have because I'll play the game for itself. Like South of Midnight comes out first, and I'll play it for what it is. I'm just talking about within the presentation itself, the direct comparison of two games that have quote unquote similar combat. Like one of them just kind of seems, it makes the other one just, you know, more low key, more pedestrian. That's not to say it won't be great when it comes out or have its own strengths and stuff like that. I just thought like having them like that. And I don't know, how would you done it? Would you have started with South of Midnight and then gone through the whole thing and then ended? Because you can sort of tell it was like, here's Ninja Gaiden, and then they went in order of the games released. Like South of Midnight, April 8th. Expedition 33, April 24th. Doom the Dark Ages, May 15th. Right? So they clearly went like boom, 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 boom. And it was just like, well, wouldn't in that case you'd have Ninja Gaiden as the last one because it's fall 2025? Did they just want to like hype everybody up immediately, being like, holy God, Ninja Gaiden 4, how incredible is this? And then like, all right, we'll crescendo then with like Doom at the end because people are super hyped about Doom. So
no, I don't think I agree.
Maybe I'm off base. Maybe I'm off base. Do you feel differently?
Yeah, I think like it was cool to start with Ninja Gaiden because you get everyone fired up, and then it sort of makes, I think it sort of casts a halo effect over the rest of the show because if everyone's really excited for the next two pieces, I think like there's too much I don't know. People do comparisons too much, I think. And it's hard not to do comparisons when things are being shown back to back to back to back like that. So I get it, but they are very different games, and I think that's kind of okay. Like not everything has to be super fast paced. And
I'm not saying it's a problem for South of Midnight. I'm just saying.
No, I know what you mean.
I would have separated them a little bit because it like when you see the one versus the other, it's like wow, like one is pretty damn amazing, and the other one's like it's a little bit on the slower side. I'm not saying that's going to be a problem for South of Midnight whatsoever. I'm just, you know, man, my CPU is going nuts right now on my PC for whatever reason. I don't know why. Yeah, it's like I can hear the fans kicking on for. I don't know why.
Maybe you do need that. Maybe you do need that 5090.
Yeah,
bro.
my CPU, not my GPU, Jez.
Yeah, but the joke wouldn't have worked if I said that though.
Yeah, I know it wouldn't. Anyways, so what did you think of the game then? What did you think of the presentation?
I think it looks really good. I do agree that the combat didn't look that super exciting, but I love the monster designs, the bosses, the world, the sort of stop motion style is super unique. I'm just kind of wondering how big the game's going to be because it is going to be lower priced and it is also like direct to digital, which kind of gives me the impression that maybe this is going to be a shorter kind of game. Not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I think Josh Sawyer recently said in an interview that people are fed up of longer games. I mean, I enjoy longer games if they're good.
You know,
maybe like,
are they though? Because when the information came out that South of Midnight was $40, I saw people complain about it.
It's weird, isn't it? Because like I remember having a discussion with you about Recall because that was like $40, I think, or $30 even when it launched.
Or we had the same discussion with State of Decay 2 when it was also cheaper, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of like, well, are you kind of admitting that there's a quality deficit there, you know?
But that's a problem within itself because it's people will be like, oh, $70 is too much. But when a game isn't $70, they're like, oh, why isn't this $70?
It's mid.
That's why is this game cheaper? Is there something wrong with it? And then they'll be like, oh, it's $40, so the game must only be 5 hours long. And even if it is only 5 hours long, what's wrong with that? Not every game needs to be a 100-hour bloated open world collectathon. You know, if they built the game's 8 hours long, and it tells a beginning, middle, and end to the story, and it has compelling gameplay and mechanics and a world with everything, and it gets everything it wants to do within 8 hours, and they want to sell it for $40. Why shouldn't they? But then you have people being like, well, there's something wrong with the game because it's cheaper. And I wonder if how some people view indie games, where it's like, oh, it's $20 and it's not 70, so there must be something wrong, or the game's short or whatever.
It is weird how gaming's like that. I think more like AA games that sort of are priced a little bit lower would be a good thing for the industry. You know, if more games are willing to do that. You know, similar to, I suppose, other types of media where it's like, you know, I'm buying this, I don't know, I'm going to McDonald's, you know, I like McDonald's, but it's not like going to a fancy restaurant or something, right? As a stupid example. You know, how much is Blasphemous? $20? I'm playing Blasphemous at the moment, and I think Blasphemous is like one of the best games I've played in years and years and years, and it's like $20, you know. But like it's people are like, oh, it's okay that it's $20 because it's 2D, it's 2D game, an indie dev, whatever, you know. But like if a AAA publisher, mega corporation like Microsoft published a game like that, everyone loses their minds, you know.
Yeah,
as a Joker would say.
Yes, everybody does need. And Special Nick is here in the chat.
Oh, great.
Yeah, our buddy.
Hello, Nick.
Yep, our buddy dropping a super chat. Nick says, a plumber just came out and saved me $3,500, so here's some of my savings. Hey, did the plumber have to come out because you clogged it? Or what? Was it your own mistake that clogged the toilet, or did one of those giant spiders find its way in there? Or maybe one of those
huge
Australian critters got into the plumbing. Yeah. What happened there, Nick?
He dropped his didgeridoo in the toilet. God, how many awful Australian stereotypes can we fit into one segment?
As many as we can.
Yeah. Or a shark swam up the toilet. Or a fucking, I don't know, kangaroo. A wallaby.
A wallaby. So yeah, look, my criticism about, I know some people are kind of like, breaking news, Rand called South of Midnight pedestrian. I was just saying the way they presented it in the showcase back after Ninja Gaiden made the combat stick out to me. Maybe in a way that it really shouldn't have. Where it was like, oh, well, we just saw this crazy high-energy combat system, and it's like South of Midnight, it's like, oh, man, it really just highlighted it. But I'm not going to care when I'm going to play the game. Like, the game's going to be a different story. I'll play it for what it is, and I know what that game is. But, yeah, I'm really curious about the story in that game and what they've built. April 8th is great. You know, that's a couple months away now. So, yeah, South of Midnight. Then we got Expedition 33, which was the game that was revealed at the Xbox Game Showcase last year that everybody was like, wow, that looks really cool. A turn-based JRPG, or turn-based RPG, but with really cinematic fights. That looks cool. It's coming to Game Pass on day one. They announced it for April 24th. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Jez?
Repeat that last part again.
Do you have any thoughts on Expedition 33?
Oh, yeah, Expedition 33. I'm really rooting for this game because, you know, bringing it back to Final Fantasy again, I kind of want Square Enix to look at this and be like, because their whole thing for a long time was like, nobody wants turn-based, whatever. And I kind of feel like as Final Fantasy's gradually moved towards wanting to be a hack and slash game, you know, it's lost a lot of its identity. And I think like when you are dealing with like legacy franchises that have this huge nostalgia around them, constantly changing the expectation kind of dilutes the nostalgia, you know. I know Final Fantasy's nostalgia isn't just the gameplay. It's like the Chocobos or the Moogles or the Tomberries and all those sort of iconic characters and a bit like Pokemon really. But and I know every Final Fantasy game has an experimental aspect to it as well. But I think they strayed way too far off what most people think of as Final Fantasy with Final Fantasy 16, which we're talking about pedestrian combat. Nothing typifies that for me more than Final Fantasy 16. You know, it's spectacular. You know, when the cutscenes are popping off in the middle of the fights and stuff like that. It's really cool to watch. But God, the combat is so boring in Final Fantasy 16. It's some of the worst hack and slash combat I've ever experienced in a modern game. So part of me wants them to look at this and be like, oh, actually, we can modernize JRPGs, and this is what the developers are kind of aiming for with this. It's a fantastical world, but it's not sort of anime style. It's got this very sort of European folklore edge to it, in a way. But also, it's very French. You can kind of just see that it's all about art. There's this entity in the game. If you guys have, for those who haven't checked out what the story is in Clair Obscur, there's this weird entity which is sort of taken over the world by painting monsters, and every year she paints like a number which kills everyone of that age and above, and every year the number gets lower. It's like some sort of demonic art project which is killing everyone. So every year they send warriors out in an expedition to try and once and for all get rid of this. I think they call her the Paintress, if I remember correctly. And this is the 33rd expedition, so everyone older than 33 has been killed. Thanos snapped out of existence by this weird creature. And and there's it shows like aspects of the world. There's like the Eiffel Tower all twisted by all this fantastical stuff, and there's a heavy sort of art slant to the game, like high art, refined art, whatever. So it's very high concept stuff, very, very interesting. But then like you look at the combat and it's like, that looks really cool too. It kind of builds on a lot of modern turn-based JRPGs, I think. Like, clearly there's some inspiration from Persona there, where you look at the UI and the UI has a lot of personality, not just the combat itself, but the UI has a lot of personality, which I think is definitely drawn inspiration from Persona. And also there's active aspects to the turn-based gameplay as well. It kind of, and Square Enix themselves experimented with that in the past. Like, remember Final Fantasy VIII with the trigger to shoot Squall's Gunblade, if you remember that. It feels like whereas Square Enix didn't bother experimenting more in that direction really, almost went more towards active tactical combat. These guys are like, well, what if we took what they were experimenting with Final Fantasy VIII and extrapolated it even more? I know there's a lot of other JRPGs which have done stuff like this. I remember that there was one on the 360. Was it called Resonance of Fate? And also, that had the whole gun martial arts aspect to it. And then there was also Legend of Dragoon had these sort of quick time events in combat as well. And also Shadow Hearts, they had that whole sort of that wheel system. Do you remember that wheel in Shadow Hearts where you had to sort of tap the button at the right time to hit the segments to do the I mean, so it's not as if this hasn't happened before, but it seems like they're doing this in a way where it's not sort of burden, and it happens quite seamless and it's quite quick, and it results in very sort of spectacular effects when they do it. So I think Clair Obscur looks really fantastic, and I do hope that Square Enix. I do hope that it blows up and it gives Square Enix pause about what they do with Final Fantasy 17, because hack and slash is absolutely not the way to go with Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy to me is always about having a party going on a journey together. It was never like Final Fantasy 16 feels like a lonely game, you know, and it feels like something that should have been a spin-off, you know, a bit like Strangers of Paradise or something like that. You know, I don't mind them experimenting, but like with the mainline Final Fantasy games, I feel like it should always be party based, and it should always have like a tactical aspect to it. Which is why I think Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth is a much better way to bridge active combat with those tactical routes. I think they did it a lot better in Rebirth and Remake than they did in 16. I really hope that 17 is not hack and slash, because they are not good at it. But yeah, Caleb School looked fantastic. Really excited about that one. It's coming to Game Pass, so
Yeah, Game Pass day 1.
and Cloud, so it'll be a good game for Cloud too.
Yeah, you know, now I'm in my JRPG bag right now. My turn-based bag.
Me too, man.
So I'm seeing like the combat from that stuff is, like you mentioned, it's something that's been done before, but it's like it hasn't been done in quite some time. And maybe certainly it hasn't been done as stylistically or as cinematically as this one is doing it, right?
Yeah, the sort of with the AAA stylings. Because obviously, like, even Persona's like, it's not, I'm not saying it's not AAA, but it's anime styled. It's heavily text based. So Persona is like a much more affordable game to make than something like a AAA photorealistic graphics with full-blown voice acting and motion capture and all that kind of stuff. A lot of what you see in Persona is not really a big budget experience, which is fine, because the big budget aspect of it is like the characters, the story, and all that kind of stuff, right? So it'll be interesting to see how the game lands as a AAA turn-based JRPG inspired Western RPG. So it's like a WJRPG, right? New genre, WJRPG. And there have been other companies that have tried to do stuff like this, which with mixed success. There was that Edge of Eternity. That Edge of Eternity, which was that classic Final Fantasy inspired game, which it was kickstarted, I think, originally, and then it was in early access, and then it just kind of, I don't remember anything about that game. I don't know how it landed. It just kind of like disappeared off the face of the earth. So I'm excited about this because of what it could mean for the future of the genre. You know.
What do you think about how they added an overworld and the guy that can like fly, like the little big?
Yeah,
dude?
that was kind of funny. It's like the game also has those sort of silly aspects to it, like you know, like in Final Fantasy VII with Kate Sith. You know, that's the first thing I thought when I saw that. I was like, oh my god, it's Kate Sith. You know, so not taking itself super seriously and having those silly aspects, I think, is going to make the game sort of hit that range of emotions, right? What did Rare call it? When Rare was making Sea of Thieves, they had this thing called the Wheel of Emotions, I think it was called, where it's like, we want to hit, when you're playing Sea of Thieves, we want to be able to hit all of these emotions. Just like joy, sorrow, anger, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I think Sea of Thieves does now that pretty well, you know, but it does so like through the emerging gameplay of having to, you know, play with other people, right? But that's what Final Fantasy is to me. It's got those sort of deep moments, but also like the genuinely funny moments and stuff like that. I'm really looking forward to it, man. I hope it lands well.
Yeah. Well,
also Cloud, man. Cloud gaming.
Yeah, you love your Cloud.
Sure do.
Before we talk about Doom, I wanted to ask you about another an aspect of the show itself. Get your thoughts on this. they did it for Ninja Gaiden and they did it for Expedition 33 and Doom about having PS5 listed with the other versions of the game. I've seen, some people are just like, whatever, we live in a new world. This is just Xbox, and their games are coming to other platforms, so whatever. I've seen some criticisms from fans saying, like, oh, you couldn't even just, for, an hour, just have it say Xbox. Like, you had to include that. How did you view, like, not only including that for games, their own games like Doom and Ninja Gaiden, but also for a third-party game, Expeditions, because Xbox doesn't really, outside of a Game Pass deal, they normally don't. It's like it's usually just Xbox, but they're including like the PS5 version for Expedition 33.
I think it's fine.
Is it more just
kind of
just like ripping the Band-Aid off for people, and it's like not hiding their intentions, like, because to me it's like, well, if you're doing this here with games, then I would expect it to also show up at the showcase in June, right? Like when we see a new Outer Worlds trailer, I expect the trailer to end and say PC, Xbox, Game Pass, Switch 2, and PlayStation 5. It's just like the new normal going forward, where they're not going to hide their multi-plat intentions, where people wanted like more being upfront about their stuff, and is this being more upfront?
I think it personally doesn't bother me at all, and I think like what it does do, it kind of it will put a spotlight on Sony and make them look kind of petty when they do it. It's like, well,
I don't agree.
Xbox is. I mean, it's it's just that it is just the kind of the new world we kind of living in. I kind of feel like, if it's why bother hide it? You're kind of screwing over your customers by not giving them the full information. And I think that the ship has well and truly sailed. I think the time to obfuscate is well and truly past, and I just don't care, man.
True. No, I mean, it's whatever. I've just seen their discussion about, like, oh, couldn't you have just pretended or just had it so we could enjoy this stuff for
like who
a
cares?
couple weeks? It's like, I guess you would have had Ninja Gaiden, and Ninja Gaiden would have said Xbox and PC, and then you would have had PlayStation probably release the trailer like they did for Doom. Because last year, when they revealed Doom, the Xbox showcase, it just said Xbox and PC. And then PlayStation posted the trailer, and then the Xbox Wire article, they talked about, how it's coming to these platforms. And I just wonder if they think, well, this is what we're doing moving forward, and these are the platforms that the games are going to release on, so there's no reason to hide it anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, these are the stuff. And then whenever Switch 2 is sort of truly revealed with this stuff, I would imagine in the trailers and stuff you'd see Switch 2 alongside all that stuff. And, I'm sure like if this was a year ago, everybody would have lost their minds. But everybody's sort of had a year to kind of like think about it, come to terms with their own feelings, like going through the 5 stages of grief, specifically, right? Like, what is it? Denial,
anger, whatever.
Yeah, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So I think a lot of people have just gone through those stages where they're just like, ain't nothing I can do. It's not worth being angry about anymore. There's Xbox ain't getting any trades of like tit for tat of like, hey, we're gonna give you this stuff, so we should get this stuff back. It's just like, well, this is the new reality, and it does seem like Xbox is not trying to hide it. I just thought it was curious for a third-party game, and I wonder if that's going to be another theme going forward. Where, let's imagine they have just imagine if they had a Final Fantasy 17 trailer that showed up at their show. Would they list all the platforms as well?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they have in the past, and they got some criticism for I think it was Persona 3 Reloaded, or one of those games recently where there was like a 2-day embargo on that game being announced for competing platforms, where it was like
Mm.
it was just announced for Xbox and PC, and everybody knew it was coming to their platforms, but they couldn't talk about it for a couple days. I sort of wonder if those things are not going to happen anymore, because those are also pretty recent. I don't know. It's just another aspect of the show, but I don't really think it overshadowed anything. And like the people talking about it definitely are like, you know,
It's just the way things are now.
people
You know,
people
it's
people have gone through their 5 stages, and you know, wherever
it's just the way
everybody's
things
at
are.
is up to them, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just in wait and see mode. Microsoft's heard the feedback. They disagree. And now we'll see if they're right or not, whether or not it matters. Maybe they're making a huge historical mistake, or we'll be sitting here and like doing Xbox 2 in like 3 or 4 years, being like, well, that was a mistake. But I got a feeling that it won't be, and that everything will just be as it is. Xbox will keep releasing hardware. It'll be closer to PC than ever, but we'll still get games, and they'll still work on Xbox, and I'll still have all my shit, and it'll be fine. You know, maybe it'll be better than fine. Maybe something will happen where it's like, okay, now, suddenly core gaming is cool again, and all service games get banned or something. You
Yeah.
never know what's gonna happen. You know.
Well, we had the Big Daddy closed the show with Doom: The Dark Ages, and Jesus, you're talking about one of the biggest games of the year.
Oh, it looks good. It looks super good.
I know how
And no
you love
platforming
Doom.
bullshit.
Yeah, I know. That was the first thing I thought of when I love that segment in the show where they're like, in Doom 2016, we asked you to run and gun. In Doom Eternal, we asked you to jump and shoot. And in this game, we're asking you to stand and fight. It's like, yeah. But the thing is, I'm someone who actually didn't mind the acrobatics or the platforming stuff, and I know there were definitely people who didn't like it, and it sort of seems
Me.
like they heard that feedback, so they're like, all right, we're gonna scale it back. So, what are your thoughts on Doom? Because I got nothing but praise. I think maybe I have a mild criticism, but basically, like, you're right now when I look at like the games outside of GTA 6 is my most anticipated, but you remove that from this year, it's like, geez, like Doom is literally right there, 1 or 2, depending on, like Fable or whatever. It's like, so what do you think about the Doom Slayer?
I think it looked absolutely fantastic. I don't know if it could have had a better showing. I'm really sort of intrigued, like, by the fact they want to double down on story.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting, because obviously 2016 and Eternal, they had story, but it was like, it was mild. It wasn't the point. And I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing to give story a backseat. But it's also like there's a lot of interesting lore they've been designing for these games, and it's kind of like, I want to know more. I think it's weirdly cool what they're building here. But I'm someone who really liked Doom 3. I really liked Doom 3 and the way they presented, almost like, okay, what if Doom was more story based, and did make sense in the context of its world. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited exploring that aspect of it. The combat obviously looked absolutely fantastic. I couldn't believe it when he pulled out the mace and started smashing the monsters with it. I thought, God, that is just immensely cool. Just so cool. So metal. So I'm really excited about that. But my one minor criticism would be, I think the indicators are too flashy and arcadey, and I know Doom's always been kind of arcadey, the modern ones especially, and with the flashing enemies and doing the glory kills and stuff like that. But I wouldn't have minded if the indicators for, like, when you can pull off an execution or something, I wouldn't have minded if they were a little bit more embedded in the game's world rather than sort of being like a UI element, you know?
Okay.
So I'm, but that's a subjective thing.
Yeah, but
It's a
I
minor
just don't
gripe.
know how else you're supposed to signify like, hey, this enemy is available for a glory kill, right?
I don't know. Have him start throwing up blood or
I
something.
mean,
I
but
don't
you
know.
won't be able to see that when you're under fire from all the enemies. You can't. You can easily distinguish before when the enemies would glow. If you're just, oh, they're spurting up blood, you're not going to be able to know that because you're going to be like, oh shit, I'm getting shot at, I need to move. But then you can easily, there's a easel.
If they're standing still and blood's going everywhere, like that's an indicator, bro.
Yeah,
I'm just sure there's a better way of doing it personally, but it's also not a big idea.
I mean,
A
it's.
big problem.
I sort of had the same thing about like the purple circle. I'm just like, maybe could we do better than a circle? Just like a
Mm.
purple thing around it, because I didn't mind like the enemies glowing. Like I actually kind of appreciated that. And you know what? I'm actually someone who, even after playing through Eternal or whatever, like I still got kind of a kick out of like doing those glory kills and the different animations you could do with the different sort of kills everywhere else. So
Yeah.
I get what they're trying to do, but like we're gonna change it up a little bit and whatever. But Jesus, man, this game, it like literally looks like it took one of my favorite mechanics from recent games and then put it in Doom. And what I mean by that is the parrying. Like I've talked about this before, how much I love parrying in games, whether it's like Sekiro or any other game that has that aspect where like you're attacking enemies. Jedi Survivor has that, and then they attack you, but you can parry back and maybe break their defense. And it's like, okay, what do we do with Doomslayer, right? We did 2016, we brought him back, people loved it. Eternal was more colorful. Enemies had weak points that you could take out with certain types of ammo. Like you had to like use different weapons. You could get around and do all these exploration stuff. And it's like, okay, what do we do to make this different but still be Doom? And it's like, how about we got a fucking saw shield that you're carrying around that you can throw at enemies and kill them, that you can then throw at bigger enemies and they stick in and you're doing damage. You can see the thing, twisting in the breeze, like spinning on them. But then you got these big hulking demons and they're coming at you, attack, and you can just stand there and just parry them and then attack with your melee stuff. Like, I don't know. There is something about that mechanic that is just so good to me. Like so good. Like, it just brings a smile to my face because it's like, all right, you read the attack animation right. You press the button at the right time. There's the rumble in the controller. There's the animation of the enemy getting stunned. There's the sound of that happening, and then you open it up for an easy kill. I don't know what it is. There's things in games I hate, like survival elements and crafting. But then there's sometimes like mechanics in games I love, like parrying. And then when you watch this stuff where, the Slayer's like using the shield to block some bullets, but then throws it out and teleports to it, and then does like a quick dash, and then using his weapon, and then here's this big enemy, and you parry it, and then you use the melee. I'm like, oh my lord, like this game seems to have it all. That's the one thing it doesn't have is multiplayer. Which I did see a small,
I was a bit disappointed about that.
And deflecting, like you can see, like they got the bullet hell design for stuff where enemies are shooting out a bunch of bullets, and if one of them's green, you can deflect it back. I love that stuff, man. It's so cool.
It is cool.
But so yeah, the multiplayer thing. What, you're actually disappointed it doesn't have any? Did you really play a lot of Doom Eternal? It's multiplayer. PV?
No, I hated that one, but I did play a lot of the 2016 one. Well, I say a lot, maybe like
you played like 5 hours
I don't know,
of it, and that was it.
5 hours, yeah, something like that.
Well, I mean, I think it's just clearly nobody kind of played it. So
I wanted it to be a thing because it was so classic. It was like, oh man, this almost feels like Quake or Unreal Tournament. I just kind of wanted it to be a thing. And maybe Doom 2016 wasn't it, but I think part of me was hoping that they would figure it out and make it a thing again, but I don't know.
I mean,
no big deal.
I don't care. I mean, I played the Doom 2016 multiplayer, wasn't anything special. I mean, they talked about how they wanted to focus on the single player, and because of them not doing multiplayer, they're able to add actual mech levels, actual flying dragon, dragon levels where those things have their own skill trees and their own. It's like not just, hey, I'm driving this mech and you get 5 minutes of it or something. It really seems
Yeah,
like they built like levels and stuff for these things. You know what I mean?
I was glad they were like I was glad they called that out, where it's like this isn't just a gimmick, this is actually like going to be a deep system or whatever. Maybe it will still will be a gimmick, but we'll see. You know, I like the fact that they were cognizant of the idea that people would think, oh, this they've just slapped this in here for some reason, you know, because you know in Gears 4, spoilers for Gears 4 from 10 years ago or whatever. At the end of Gears 4, you get a mech, and you use
it's pretty cool.
the helicopter. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You get the mech and you use the helicopter propellers as like a chainsaw, basically. It's badass, right? But if it had gone on any longer than it did, it felt like it would have overstayed its welcome. Thankfully, it's quite brief. It's just there to be badass, right? But if this is like going to be a whole system where it's more deep and more interesting, more compelling, then it could land really well. Because I suppose like the whole point of this is that it's a big war between like two nations essentially, you know. And when you're going through Doom Eternal, you're sort of wading through the aftermath of that big war. Although there are like a couple of set piece moments, you know, where you do fight like colossal enemies. But like I remember playing through the first level of Doom Eternal the very first time, and there's a part near the start of the game where you have to sort of climb over the wreckage of a mech and a giant colossal demon. And it's like, oh man, I would have loved to have seen that part of the game, or maybe even been in that part of the game, you know, piloting one of those mechs. So maybe that's addressing that kind of almost tease that they slapped in there back in the day. So it's really cool, thoughtful the way they've presented all that stuff. I'm really excited to see how good it is when you get my hands on it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have that long. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, Doom the Dark Ages is going to be out in essentially less than 4 months. You got less than 4 months to wait. And the game was revealed last year. I think Xbox has really heard the criticisms of revealing stuff too early.
Shit too early.
Yeah, because, I mean, they sort of had to in 2020, and we're still waiting. I mean, what did we call those games?
The elusive four.
The Everwilds, the State of Decay 3, Perfect Dark, and I forget what the other one was, but there was those games.
Maybe
there was those games that revealed in 2020 that we're still waiting on, and you know, Avowed's finally coming out this year, and it was like, all right, it's been a while for that stuff, but it really does seem like the time between reveal and you know, showing off the game and releasing it is shorter, because Doom the Dark Ages revealed in June of 2024, out May of 2025. So there's not long to wait, right? Ninja Gaiden 4 revealed January of 2025 and out in the fall, so less than a year. You know, and Gears E-Day revealed last year. Rumors that it could release this year, and if not, then next year. I think 2 years is like the max maybe you should do. Like, I've always kind of thought, like, you reveal it, and the next year, and then it's like, okay, it's coming the following year. Like, 2 years is kind of like the perfect. Obviously, like 1 year would be better because it's a shorter time, but 2 years isn't that bad for me. Like, when I look at like a game revealed in 2024 should be out by 2026. Yeah. I think that's like the premium path. But if you want to do it shorter than that, amazing. It's just that when you get into this things of, hey, we revealed this game in 2020 and it's coming out in 2025 or 2026, it's like, maybe you should have held on to that for a bit. But they have so many projects that they can just wait. They can wait for the projects to get to the point where they could maybe show gameplay, and they don't need to, because I think there's always that pressure in years past of needing to show something because people are like, oh, well, what's next? Like we have this, but like what's next? And you show something that's too early and then you have to wait for it. Where now it's like there's so much stuff and there's, a lot of the games coming out, whatever, that you don't necessarily have to be like, oh, we need to show this one particular game now. Like you can wait until it's more, in a closer state, right? So I think Xbox has kind of heard that feedback, loud and clear. Like even the Ninja Gaiden 4, that could have closed this show, but it also could have closed the showcase show last year. They did close it with Gear Z Day, but you could have easily have closed it with Ninja Gaiden 4, right? And that would have hyped people up. Nobody was expecting it. And it's just like, that's something you hold off on. And Gears, like I said, they closed it last year. That could close any show. And, I would imagine like they got Halo projects. There's rumors that they might reveal something Halo related this year. We'll see. But it's like kind of like, well, maybe it's like Halo you just hold on to so it's closer to release. Like if it's not coming until 2027, maybe you hold off on announcing it until 2026. And
I think part of me thinks as well, like, it's better to announce and then release than have these like year-long gaps in between, because there is so much content and so many, I don't know, there's only like so much attention you can give to anything at any one time. I think like if you're spreading out your messaging too thinly, you pretty much like, you can't capitalize on the hype the same way you can if you do it all at once, I think. And like, especially thinking in terms of SEO, when you're doing like SEO, you kind of want to have a big blowout for the algorithm. Like if you're making a YouTube video and stuff like that, you kind of want to release everything all at once. I don't know. So I do think it's a better way of doing it, because people get fed up and they move on, and there's other things. There's a lot of things a lot of things that are vying for your attention at any one time, I suppose is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I guess like maybe one of the things if you lose is like the marketing cycle, but I don't think you need to announce the game 3 years out to have the perfect marketing. Like I think Doom is in people's minds right now in the forefront because they saw a 10-minute presentation and it looked fantastic, and now it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be able to play it in 4 months. And I'm sure like the marketing will start ramping up in a couple months here, because that's one of those games that is big enough to, I don't know, I don't want to say like justify the cost, because people are wondering like, where's the Avowed marketing? And it's just like, well, Avowed and Doom are two, like they're on two totally separate levels, But it's like, yeah, that was the beginning of the marketing for, those particular games, especially Doom. So, love the direct. Love the format. It's got something to look forward to at the beginning of every year. And now the speculation is like, well, what do they do next year? But it's like, hey, you have the showcase to look forward to. And that's the other thing. It's like, now you got all these games leading up to Doom. And then a month after Doom's out is the showcase. And where you're probably going to, have more stuff for Gear Z Day and maybe Fable. I saw, Tom Warren mentioned in his notepad that he specifically called out Contraband and Clockwork Revolution as games being at the showcase this year. Jez?
Oh, did it?
Yeah, he specifically mentioned those two games. Which, hey, people have been wondering where the F is Contraband. I've been wondering that too, because, we saw that, we didn't really see it, but they announced it in 2021, and it's like, what have they been doing over there? What have they been doing this whole time?
Yeah,
so,
it's been a long way.
Yeah, so it's you got all that cool stuff there, and then you'll. But I mean, if you look at previous years, we should be getting a partner direct in March, in a couple months from now, because they seem to do developer direct January, partner direct for March for stuff coming in the near future term. You have your showcase in June. Then you have like another partner direct in like October or like late September, early October. and then like you have whatever you want to do at the Game Awards or whatever you want to do at the Keeleys in like August and like Tokyo Game Show in September and stuff like that. But then it all repeats itself. So there'll probably be another partner direct here in a couple months with third party games with different stuff. But yeah, really really impressed with this direct and with the flow of content Xbox is putting out this year seems to be of dare I say it, legendary status potentially if nothing gets delayed. I mean, there's always a chance something could. Game development's always turbulent. But if they just release the games that they've announced with this stuff, I mean, we've mentioned before, it was like they got like 8 or 9 or 10 games. And if Oblivion comes out or the Gears Collection comes out, they'll have released like 10 games this year because a new Call of Duty's coming. And it's like, well, if they just get this couple other stuff, they'll 10 games. Like that's absolutely insane. That's basically only like 2 months that wouldn't have an Xbox game. So we'll see.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And that's not counting all third party.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of third party, real briefly, you know what I'm going to mention?
Okay.
Do you know? EA's share price.
Well, yeah. Let me get to the super chats and we'll talk about EA. Honcho with the 199 says, "How's Britain stand, Jez? Britain stand?
Eh?
I don't know. He says, "How's Britain stan? Britain stand? Britain stand?"
No idea what he's talking about.
We got Big Afroman with the 20. Listen to Sacred Symbols and Defining Duke, and I have to agree with Colin. He said, with PlayStation canceling games left and right and their studios needing time to make games, this year would have been perfect for Xbox to catch up, and instead they're feeding PlayStation. Well, I mean, like I said, there's some world where Xbox's games are exclusive, and to see how that really plays out. But I would counter with PlayStation games being canceled, is the audience who's buying in the market for consoles, are they really buying PlayStations for exclusives, especially now with after 65 million sold or whatever they're at? Or are people buying PlayStation just because that's where
it's a default,
like the default console you buy for the third-party games? Like,
yeah,
I know like people will. I don't think people will be upset by what I'll say next here, but if Sony released no first-party games this year, nothing, I don't really think they would. I don't really think it would be bad from them, like sales-wise, because I really believe that a lot of what PlayStation consume, like not the like hardcore Twitter users, podcast users, right? Because they're just about these exclusives that Sony's put out, but Sony could probably get away with not releasing a single thing and still sell a great amount of consoles. Maybe it wouldn't be up to what they would want, but they could probably still do it. And I just think those things are different for both. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely an interesting comparison between the two, where Xbox is just hitting its stride, and it's going to be like overflowing with games the next 3 or 4 years, where PlayStation is, they have some games in development, but you've just canceled 9 games and you can't turn around really quickly. So how are they going to impact that? Or how is it going to impact their future games lineup? Are they only going to release a couple games here and there? Are they going to have to money hat some stuff to make it seem like they have an impressive lineup? Does it even matter? Are people just being like, well, actually, I'm going to get a PlayStation because of Grand Theft Auto 6? And that could be the thing. Like, if Grand Theft Auto 6 came out this year and Sony had nothing else, they'd probably be good, because I think the console that people would buy for Grand Theft Auto is the PlayStation 5. I think they're just beneficiaries of just being the console that when people talk about like, hey, what are you getting? I'm getting a PlayStation. That's just, especially worldwide. Maybe Xbox could have made some a comeback in the US where they're at least have some a bigger fan base, but I'm not sure it matters in that regard. Maybe it does, and I'm completely wrong. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. Like if they just release Ghost of Yotai this year, do you expect their hardware sales to plummet? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could get Colin on the show and talk to him about that and see what he thinks. But I don't know. Big Afroman with the one gifted subscription. Thank you. And James Wiseau with the 1999 says, "Hey guys, best Dev Direct in my personal opinion. First time I've wanted to play every single game shown day one. Missed the start of the show, but Rand, it makes me so happy that you are liking Metaphor Expedition 33. Metaphor, yeah. I did like Metaphor quite a bit. And yeah, like seeing Expedition 33, I am interested in playing it for sure. April 24th. I'll probably check it out. But I'm also not curious about Persona. I don't know when I'll play Persona, but whenever I do, Jez is gonna have to be a little worried because if I do start it, I'll finish it. So you got some time though, Jez. But moving on.
I am bothered.
Moving on from that, what do you want to talk about with EA? What happened with EA, Jez? What's going on? Did a certain game bomb perhaps and really affect EA's bottom line?
Yeah. So the whole thing with EA is they did their investor stuff and they were like, yeah, so guys, not only did Dragon Age bomb really hard and miss targets by 50%, football conversions are down too, which could be maybe related to the rebrand, because they lost the license.
Is this the first year for the rebrand, or I thought they last year's was rebranded as well, no?
Yeah, maybe, but I suppose there's only so many times you can just keep reselling the same game over and over again.
They've been doing it forever. Are you saying they finally reached the point where people don't want to play football anymore?
Well, the people are just fed up of EA shenanigans, because I don't know a single FIFA player. I know a bunch of FIFA players, obviously being British. I don't know a single person who actually is happy with the game or happy with the FIFA anything or happy with EA. They play it because there's nothing else, basically. It's the best and only option. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome kind of. But what you gonna do? But it seems like people are fed up of it and sticking with the old FIFA or something for now or whatever, and maybe EA needs to rethink a bit. But yeah, Dragon Age was a massive failure from the sounds of it, and kind of, I don't know, puts BioWare in last chance saloon, I think.
Well, so EA's lost like $6 billion in market value. Their stock was down like 22%. They called out the underperformance of Dragon Age and FC25 in their earnings report. Dragon Age underperformed by 50% of whatever they wanted it to do. It had like 1.5 million players, so it wasn't in really any subscription services, so that roughly translates to like 1.5 million sales. But for a game that been in development for, 7 years? And it's had its up and downs, and it was in dev hell because it was supposed to be a multiplayer game, and then it went single player. And now BioWare's had basically 2 back-to-back bombs?
Yeah.
I'm not feeling very confident they'll actually get to make Mass Effect 5. And then I'm also not very confident.
Not a certain thing.
I'm not confident Mass Effect 5 will actually be any good either.
Oof.
Because while I enjoyed Dragon Age, I also came at it from a standpoint of I don't know shit about the franchise really. And I enjoyed what it was, but it didn't even make my top 10 for the games of the year, for what I thought were the best games of the year. And I'm not surprised by look, you made a sequel to Dragon Age was never that popular in the first place. 1. You made a sequel to a game that came out 10 years ago. Like a direct sequel to Inquisition, but it took you 10 years to get there. So it's not that difficult to kind of look at it and be like, man, like, one, how could you. It almost kind of feels like this Dragon Age game should have been a soft reboot of the franchise. Because I'm sure there's plenty of people that were like, I didn't play Inquisition, so I'm not going to bother with Dreadgod. Maybe rebooting and starting over in a different way would have been, or Dreadwolf, whatever, or
Veilguard,
whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like the people that were like, oh well, man, Alan Wake 2 didn't sell particularly too well, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you're coming off after what, 12 years of 13 years after Alan Wake 1, and Alan Wake 1 wasn't a big seller; it was a cult hit. So, I mean, what do you expect from Alan Wake 2? Like, you waited all this time, and not only has it been such a wait, but you, as a fan of Dragon Age, hated it. And I've seen that sentiment around, like, oh, as a fan of the franchise, it was awful. You know, and I'm someone who's not a fan of the franchise, and at least I was like, I enjoyed it for what it was. And now, but here's the thing, I am a huge fan of Mass Effect. And we've already seen Mass Effect have one sort of bomb in its history with Mass Effect Andromeda. And with Anthem not doing well and Dragon Age underperforming, would it be wrong to think of EA looking at the situation and be like, why are we going to fund the next 4 years or 5 years for you to put out a Mass Effect game that honestly isn't a surefire hit?
Yeah.
With your recent track record and Mass Effect already, having one problem game, I'm really worried that one, we're not going to get Mass Effect 5, and then two, BioWare is going to get shut down over this. But then again, it's like, I don't know what you really expected, because I think they made the wrong choice of doing a Dragon Age game. I think that they shouldn't have done that. But I mean, whatever, in my opinion, doesn't really matter that much. But
well, it sounds like it was just a nightmare, because it was a service game reportedly originally, and then they were like, actually, service game Dragon Age is a terrible idea. Let's not do that, and then pivoted it away from service. And how do you do that? Like, I think it's a miracle the game ever released. Probably. It's probably a testament to the team that it did release at all. But the game was just awful. I think it's a franchise killer, that game is. I don't think we see Dragon Age ever again. Even if Mass Effect does come out and it's good, I don't think we see Dragon Age ever again, which is a damn shame, because it was a special game in its day. Sort of the successor to those classic active tactical kind of games. But nowadays you've got like Baldur's Gate and Owlcat Games and a bunch of other companies carrying that torch much, much better than BioWare is. They kind of like, they strayed so far away from making the game that Dragon Age fans wanted to try and chase a bigger audience, and ended up making a game that nobody wants. And we see it time and time again from publicly traded companies, where it's like, oh, we need more money for our shareholders, so let's try and broaden the appeal of this game, or this genre even. And then they end up with something that nobody wants to play. That's the story of Dragon Age, really. And I think, to some degree, that's the story of Final Fantasy 16 as well. Where it's like, we need to make it more accessible, so let's make it a hack and slash. And they end up making a game that, apparently not so many people wanted to play, But hey-ho, live and learn, EA. Oh wait, no, EA never learns, do they? Because they keep fucking doing it. But I think we're moving towards an industry where you can't just keep doing this. I mean, Ubisoft's on its, in its death throes. And if EA keeps, the way it's going, maybe they could end up in a Ubisoft kind of scenario too, Obviously, EA is vastly larger than Ubisoft, but not a surefire thing. Nothing's guaranteed in this market.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen with that, but I am not. I'm not hopeful for the future of BioWare whatsoever, and it's a shame
Mm.
because they're one of the great developers during
They
the
were, yeah.
OG Xbox days and the 360 days. You know, the Mass Effect trilogy has never really been replicated by anybody. Nobody has done what Mass Effect did.
No,
Still, to this day. And
no.
maybe that has to do with the fact that at least in that point in time, you could make a game every 2 years, where like now, fucking games take forever to make. So
Yeah.
you could do 3 games, but they would take you 15 years. Like, you know what I mean? And we got 3 Mass Effect games in 2007, 2009, and was it 2012 for the third one? I think it was. All in one generation. Nobody had done that, and then you go back to their earlier stuff like Knights of the Old Republic and Jade Empire, Jade Empire, and I think they did the early Baldur's Gate games, right? Baldur's Gate like 1 and 2 or something, or Baldur's Gate 1. I didn't play any of the
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate,
One
but
and was it one? Or was that Obsidian? I don't know.
but then it's like, you know, the Dragon Age game. Well, they did the Dragon Age games as well during the 360 gen, Dragon Age Origins. And then like, Anthem kind of. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with Anthem. Single player studio making a games as a service back then, and then look how long it took them to go from Anthem to Dragon Age. I sort of feel like going to Dragon Age Inquisition or Dragon Age after Anthem was probably a bad choice. They should have been right into Mass Effect, because Mass Effect I think was always more popular.
Yeah.
I think
From what I heard, a lot of it was Casey Hudson.
yeah.
A lot of it was Casey Hudson trying to sort of give EA what he thought EA wanted, and in a way, what the industry was kind of signaling on paper what people wanted to play. Like it's when you're looking at a spreadsheet, it's like, oh, all these people are spending this much money on service games. That must mean they want more service games. But it's almost like you're comparing two different things. Like sometimes I want to play a service game, sure, but I don't want to play a BioWare service game.
Yeah.
No, the service games that I play are the service games that I play. Like you actually like, you need to come up with something new, like radically better than what's already there. And I remember they used to call Anthem the Destiny killer or whatever. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, it's like a misnomer almost, because it's not like Destiny's this huge money making machine. It's like a monstrously expensive game that has terrible margins, and it's like, this is what you want to emulate, so a lot of it's just like a catalog of errors, and I'm an Anthem apologist. I'm someone who played quite a lot of Anthem and like was kind of hopeful that this was going to be a thing, and it just ended up not being a thing ever. So
Yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. But also the story that kind of took everything, the industry by storm, is the hope that GTA 6 will at least be $100 because it's going to save the industry. It'll be a turning point for the industry. All right, so Matthew Ball, he released the State of Video Gaming in 2025 report. But a large focus of the report was on GTA 6, which is going to be the biggest release of the year. And according to the report, there is hope within the video game industry that publisher Take-Two will use the unprecedented excitement around GTA 6 in order to bump up the default price of the game to $100. It's believed that if Take-Two took the step with GTA 6, a game that will sell incredibly well regardless of the price, then others could follow suit and potentially aid in recovering the spiraling development costs. GTA publisher Take-Two was one of the first to raise prices from 60 to 70 in 2020, using the transition to the next generation of consoles as an excuse. So, yeah, while it's likely that GTA 6 will release with a $100 version as part of a lineup of very special editions, it's currently expected the standard case game will be $70. But man, a lot of people had opinions about this idea. I think you even had some polls about this.
Yeah, would you pay?
Would you
It
pay?
was funny because a lot of people were voting $100. Yeah.
Well, I think
Like, a lot of people are just like super hyped about it.
Well, here's the thing. There's a difference between GTA 6 and literally every other game in the industry. Right? I firmly believe if they did launch GTA 6 at $100, it would still sell well. Because there's a lot of pent up demand for it. It's also like a casual mass market game. It would be fine, I think. However, if anybody else thinks they can get away with that, they are fucking damn fools. Because there isn't any other game that people are complaining that $70 is too much right now for the games that come out, let alone $30 more. There's no other game that can get away with it. GTA 6 is a unicorn. And
unicorn.
It's a unicorn. Like, the idea that if they did it and then all the other publishers would be able to do it, it's like, go ahead. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to reach a different tier, and the customers that you thought you had are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to wait for sales, and the games that will benefit are the games that are kind of, I don't want to say destroying the industry, but people are just going to gravitate more to free-to-play games that don't require any initial monetary support. Right? People are going to be like, why should I pay $100 for, let's just pick a game out there, like Gears E-Day. Why should I pay $100 for Wolverine? That's too much money. I'll just go play this other stuff. So I get like the idea of like, hey, this development costs, games are costing too much. We need to raise the prices. But I think you're at a price ceiling already. I don't really think there's much more you can go. And sure, and I think they've already kind of breached this $100 thing anyways, because if you look at like the store, and there's always many different versions for games, and a lot of those have like over $100 versions, and they usually come with DLC or what the industry seems to be selling a lot of these days is early access. Pay $100 some odd for early access. Now, I could see a scenario where Grand Theft Auto launches at $70, but then let's say there's a $150 version that comes with the Shark card, and let's just say 5 days early access. Then that almost becomes like the standard, because right now, like, South of Midnight has a deluxe version. The game's launching at $40, but there is a $50 version that comes with 5 days early access. Doom also has, the regular $70 version, but it also has like a $100 version that comes with 2 days early access. If you look at most games now, they all come with like a version that is close to $100, but one of the perks it offers is early access, and people buy it. But it's also, I think in people's minds, it's, I'm getting it early, and I want this game anyways. If like the base price was $100 and then the early access was $150, I think you'd see people totally just lose their minds, and the industry, I don't know, like I'm not saying it would crash, but you'd have more reports like EA of, oh man, our game didn't reach expectations. We thought it would do more, So be careful what you wish for, because Grand Theft Auto 6 is the only game that could get away with it. Everything else, not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell.
Nah, you know what would get away with it?
What?
Monster Hunter, man.
No,
Monster Hunter Wilds.
Monster Hunter Wild would flop so bad.
No. I would pay $150 for that, bro, without early access.
Yeah, well, you could get it for a review, so you ain't paying for shit anyways. You know what I mean?
I ain't reviewing that one.
Why not? Are you biased? You already have your
No.
review written out, 5 stars out of 5 stars, Windows Central. Monster
Well,
Hunter
yeah.
World. Don't you want to play the game early?
I ain't reviewing that, bro. There's a dude in my team who's got like 1,000 hours in World. He knows way more about it than me. So.
Okay.
We've got an expert Monster Hunter in my team, so they're reviewing it. I wrote a 10,000 word guide for Vitalis, which I think is still the best Vitalis guide on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got some hardcore people in my fucking team, man. Like dude who plays Age of Empires on like insane difficulty and stuff.
And then you got Jen.
Oh, Jen,
Yeah.
Diablo, Queen,
Diablo,
thousands of hours in Diablo, and then there's me playing Final Fantasy 1. Clap. Oh man.
If you were Take-Two, would you jump on the $100 right now, or would you just? I don't know. There's a part of me that wonders, would they release the multiplayer for free, or are they so confident that they're going to sell 100 million copies that they're going to make people pay? They're going to bundle the game together with the single player and the multiplayer. And so people buy it, and maybe years down the road they make it free to play. Because I don't think, did they ever make Grand Theft Auto Online free to play? I don't think they did they?
I don't think so, dude.
So do you think they'll go down the same route, even though, that market has all the bigger games are all free to play? Does Grand Theft Auto need to play ball with all those other games, or are they just in a different class because 100 million people are going to spend whatever amount?
Like you say,
to play
it's a
that?
unicorn, bro. A unicorn.
Yeah.
Maybe the players like put it up to $80, man.
Well, no, I think it'll launch at 70.
I do too, but I think they could get away with 80. I really do think.
What if they did a thing where it was $70, and then it was like $150, but it came with like 2-month early access or a month early access to Grand Theft Auto Online? Because are they going to launch the campaign and the multiplayer day one at the same time? Are they going to stagger it where like they did for Grand Theft Auto 5 at launch, where the game came out and it was September, but then the multiplayer didn't launch until a month later? I'm very curious about how they're going to do this stuff. I think that's going to be everything at once, or are they going to, what are the tiers going to be for the payments? Like, is multiplayer going to be free to play? How much are they going to charge for the extra stuff? Is multiplayer going to be delayed just for you have all the stuff with the launch, and then you get all the extra publicity when you actually launch the multiplayer like a month later? Like, is that what they're go for? I don't know, but $100 game.
I think they will stagger it like before. You can essentially launch the game twice if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen so many companies this generation being like games underperformed, but now you're gonna raise the price on $30 to $100. I mean, even people got to worry about the Trump tariffs, about the 25% that he's putting on Canada and Mexico. And I saw Matt Pescatella talk about this, where he said,
disc prices will go up.
Where he said the disc production infrastructure is all in Mexico. So,
but that won't affect the digital price of the game, will it?
But he said he basically said it could really hamper. Actually, I sent you what he said. I'm just gonna look at our DMs and I'll read them straight out, because it's something that could happen. And I don't know how people are gonna say, but he tweeted this like 3 days ago. He says, with 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico on the way, I can see a sharp downtick in the number of disc-based games that get released physically in the U.S., as much of that production infrastructure is in Mexico. If they do get made, I expect higher prices for both physical and digital. I would, were this to happen, anticipate digital MSRPs to increase to remain at price parity with physical, But who knows? In any case, none of this is good for the physical video game market.
Well, the thing is, like, PC games didn't have price parity with discs for the longest time. They were cheaper. So I don't think they'll change this. I don't think they'll change digital prices if they do have to put disc prices up. I think they'll keep them lower to incentivize people moving to digital.
No, you know what they're gonna do? You know what they're gonna do? If they have to raise the price to say $85 or $90, because they're not gonna eat the cost of that stuff, right?
No.
And we talked about like if you price your game that high, I think people are gonna shun it. What they could do is just use that as an excuse not to release the physical copies anymore. And being like, look, imagine a situation, let's pick a game coming out this year, like, let's just say, I'm trying to think of one. Let's just say Amanusa, right? Or whatever. Maybe that's a bad one because it's, Japanese, but we'll just use it. Normally you come out with the physical version, a digital version at $70. But now let's
coming
say,
out this year?
Well, I'm just using it as a game example.
Okay.
So normally it's $70 and $70 digital physical. But because of the tariffs, the physical version is going to be $90. And because of like maybe agreements with retailers or what have you, they also have to price the digital version at $90. But, oh man, now we're worried about our game selling because we don't think our game's going to sell at $90 and it's really going to impact us. So what they could do, considering physical is dying, is just say, we're not making physical copies of the game until the tariffs are over. And just release the digital version at $70. And kind of do what Alan Wake 2 did, where Alan Wake 2 was digital only, and then like a year later they released a physical version. I could see them using that as being like, all right, we're just releasing this digital. You get more people into digital. Use it as an excuse to not have to make physical anymore because it's already
kill the used game sales market.
And then if the tariffs go away, then you could be like, okay, the physical stuff is back. But that's what I just don't see them being like, because we raised the price. Dude, I just can't see it happening.
They ain't bringing that shit back, bro.
Sure,
if they get it away because of tariffs, they ain't bringing it back.
Yeah. I mean, that's something to be worried about in the future, but I'm just saying that's how I would see that playing out. Not like, oh, we're going to raise the price to $90 now, because I think you do that, this industry's cooked, bro, as the cool kids say. Not only did Xbox cook with the developer direct, but the industry's cooked.
Dude, on that point, I've got a bone to pick with Gen Z.
Okay.
Why is it right that when you cook, it's a good thing? But when you're cooked, it's a bad thing. You notice that? How does that make any fucking sense?
So when I said in my tweet, Xbox cooked, was that a good or bad thing?
No, it's a good thing. But if you said Xbox was cooked, that'd be
Xbox cooked is good, but Xbox is cooked is bad.
Yeah, which makes no sense. Because if the act of cooking is a good thing with view of I'm going to make something cooked, but then the product is cooked means it's bad, makes no fucking sense.
Okay. Those Gen Z's, Jazz, you know?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Screwing things up. But anyways, let's take some Patreon questions, shall we?
Let's do it.
Thank you guys so much for being here on this January 24th, Friday, episode 349. We're going to be taking some Patreon questions, so if you want to get your question in, you got some time here because we got to go through a whole bunch of these. We got Sith Lord says, Xbox has games and dates. Sony's canceled 9 to 12 games. Let's see PlayStation dead articles, Jez. You gonna write a PlayStation is dead article? You did write or wasn't you? It was Sam Tolbert wrote an article about how Microsoft is dominating PlayStation when it comes to live service stuff, and I saw a couple people be like, what? Huh? And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the truth, you know? I don't know how
could you possibly deny that? Like Minecraft, Candy Crush,
Call of Duty,
all that stuff. Yeah, you can't possibly deny that.
Yeah.
And like clearly PlayStation's trying to get to that point and canceling games non-stop because they can't figure it out. Microsoft started figuring out live service a long time ago, but then they were like, oh, actually, we want to turbocharge now, so let's just buy Activision. Rather than try and figure out mobile, we'll just buy Activision, you know? Sony doesn't have that luxury, and Microsoft's playing to its strengths. That's what that article's about, but... Hey-ho!
Mr. Silas says, Happy Friday. If 2025 Rand and Jez went back to 2020 and told younger Rand and Jez how the series consoles would have done over its first 5 years and the state of Xbox gaming, would you have believed them? Absolutely not. I would definitely not have believed them. You know, at the time we were like, oh man, a $499 console and a $299 console, you're going to get more people in because of the cheaper price. And it really seemed like the games were going to come faster than they did. And we were like, multi-platform? The Xbox ain't going multi-platform. So no, I wouldn't have believed it. Neither would Jez.
Yeah, I've got this conspiracy theory that Xbox lost a tender with AMD or something. And that's why there was no stock, which accelerated their issues. But I don't know. Maybe one day we'll find out the truth.
Pat Rock says...
Maybe that's just cope.
Do you think Xbox One, one of the many reasons Xbox is putting games on PlayStation is to, after a few years, to come back at PlayStation and be like, these are all the games we put on PlayStation the last 3 years, and this is the revenue you made in all our publishing arms, and this is the projected revenue from the slate we have over the next decade. But if we pull these titles, this is the revenue missed, and to try to come to the table with either cross-pollination of former exclusives, potentially getting Play Anywhere or Game Pass on PlayStation. I feel like something more nefarious is going on behind the scenes at Xbox that no one is picking up. People think Project Latitude means elevating the studios and IP, which is true, but what if it's actually about elevating the platform for some type of mass growth later down the line that involves exclusives becoming priority again?
I've often theorized that if the business turns in a way that exclusives would be better, then they will do it. If they're convinced that, you know, continuing this path becomes a bad thing or detrimental, they'll stop doing it. But as of right now, this minute, they are convinced it's not a bad thing to do. They're convinced that it's the right path, and it's not going to be to Xbox's detriment. But I do think if it does become to their detriment, they'll change course. And furthermore, I've also theorized in the past that, like, if there is an opportunity where they can genuinely make some serious headway by going back to having exclusives, I think they would do it. But they are convinced that, like, even making Doom exclusive wouldn't help, or making Call of Duty exclusive wouldn't help, because there's so much free stuff that people can get access to that it just, none of it matters anymore, you know? But I don't know what you think about that, Rand.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's any, like, secret ploy to be like, hey, we're going to put our games all here and we're going to make all this money, and then after a few years be like, we're going to pull our shit and look how much money you're going to miss. Now pay up and give us God of War and Uncharted and stuff, or else we're pulling our shit. I don't think that's... I think
there's a plan to do that, but...
They're doing the multi-platform stuff because they have to do the multi-platform stuff. Because the books and the money people pretty much say, you have to hit your margins, you have to have this sort of profit level, and just not releasing it everywhere is detrimental to that. And I think it's like the money people won that argument, and it's all about potential short-term revenue gains for potential long-term problems, if those long-term problems actually manifest. But I don't think there's any sort of like, we're gonna show them when they make all this money off of us, and then we're gonna be like, if you want the rest of these games, you got to do this. I think they literally have to.
I don't think there's a secret. Yeah, I don't think there's a secret plan, but I think if things change, they would switch it up.
You know what's funny, when you look at the FTC trial, And like Phil talked about how exclusives were important and what he thought about them and what they're used for in the industry. But then when Satya was there, Satya was like, I don't want exclusives. Right? Pretty much up front. And now you see Xbox doesn't
He
have
did
any.
say we have to do them because the competition does them.
Yeah, well he did, but he said if he had his way, he wouldn't. And now suddenly they're not doing any. So who do you think won that argument between Phil and Satya? It's literally doing what Satya wanted. Satya won, bro. The shareholders and the money won. And they want their pound of flesh. So they're gonna get it. Jerry
I want some flesh.
says Doom Dark Ages is priced at €80 in Europe on Steam, while the US price is 70. Interesting, the Xbox store price seems to be €70 in Europe. Check the German price. Is that unusual? I'm not really.
Ooh.
Is that
I wonder if
unusual?
Microsoft's passing the cost of Steam's fee onto consumers or something.
Well,
Or experimenting with it.
You mean, so if it's $80 on Steam but $70 on the Windows Store, aren't they not passing it off to Steam?
No, because they're passing it on to consumers. So
Oh.
consumers pay more on Steam.
Oh.
If I'm understanding correctly.
So
consumers pay more on Steam to offset Steam's fee.
Well, could it be regional pricing? Just regional stuff?
No, but he says it's cheaper on Steam in Europe.
No, it's cheaper on the Xbox Store.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's cheaper on the Xbox Store.
Oh.
So Microsoft, it's cheaper there because Microsoft's like, well, we don't have to pay a fee on our own store.
True.
And maybe they're trying to incentivize people to buy it there, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just trying to look it up now.
Well, while you look it up, I'll read the next one.
I'm in Germany.
Sick and Tired says, hey man, I don't know about you guys, but I was watching the Xbox show and I just kept feeling sad. While the games look good, I was just shaking my head about how after all these years, Microsoft had finally got the pipeline of games happening exactly where they wanted to push the Xbox console forward, and they gave up. They were 12 to 18 months away from having everything they needed to the Xbox to boom. Imagine all these games being Xbox exclusive. Doom would sell consoles, Indie would sell consoles, COD marketing, but alas, what could have been? I mean, sure. I mean, I thought about that, about the idea of, like, we mentioned earlier in the show about an alternate universe where that stuff was all exclusive, and, you know, what changes, you know, and there is a sentiment of, like, you're at the goal line and it's like 4th down and you're like inches from scoring, but instead of running a play, you just take a knee or you just punt. And it's like, you're right there. You're right there. Just go the distance. You're right at the point where you had everything that you had set up and talked about from the end of last generation to now. Like, you're there. And yeah, it does sort of seem like they were just like, screw it. We're going home. We're taking our ball and going home, and we're doing this, you know. But when I was watching it, I wasn't like sad because I was like, oh, what could have been. I was just like, oh man, these games look great. And, you know, there's a part of me that was like, oh, I wonder how this would have played out, you know, if everything was exclusive. But I didn't get upset or sad about it. I mean, it's just a what if. We'll never know.
Yeah, for me, it's always been about what's good for the health of the platform and my library, you know, and so far, I'm just kind of trying to have the faith that it won't negatively impact the Xbox library. You know, so far it hasn't. So I'm going to wait and see, you know. There's no point being sad.
Yeah. Mr. Wagerman says, great week for Xbox fans and gamers alike. I feel the messaging is starting to get better. It was dead on point in the Dev Direct. Let's look ahead to the summer showcase. Do they continue on focusing on Game Pass Cloud Play Anywhere messaging and still mention PS5? Or do they take it a step further and just lay out the future and be honest about it? Buy an Xbox PC or any device that has the app or browser. For $20 a month, you get it all. The inherent value proposition is not one that Xbox has really put into the put into the real world terms for any casual fan to understand, there's a real opportunity now that they're releasing games people want. I mean, we also talked about this before. I think you'll just see PS5 and Switch 2 show up on the games and the trailers that, if it's day one, right? I mean, we saw it wasn't there for South of Midnight, and I think that's just really the team's small and there's no time. It's like time constraints. So it's what you called it before, incidental exclusives.
Incidental, yeah.
Where like potentially a year from now, South of Midnight does come to PlayStation. Just like I would imagine Avowed is. It's just kind of one of those things where if the studio wants to do it and can do it right away, then it's going to happen. But I do think we'll see PS5 and Switch 2 like logos and trailers. If they're doing it in Developer Direct, they're going to do it at their showcase because it's almost like pulling the Band-Aid off and being upfront about what games are coming. Day one or whatever. But the value proposition, it's there, but I still think not you still need to market Game Pass more, I think. I don't really think people outside this bubble really know what it is or what it can do, and I still think that's like an area that they can improve upon.
Yeah. They did put that message at the start of the showcase,
yes,
which
they did.
Seems like a direct response to feedback, right?
Yeah, I could imagine you think they do that again for the showcase? Because I can't imagine every game at the showcase would feature Xbox Play Anywhere or be on Game Pass.
Mm.
So maybe we see it again? I don't know.
I think they need a logo for Game Pass and Play Anywhere.
I mean, I think they
just
need
sort of like iconography.
Well, there is
I
mean, isn't the logo for Play Anywhere like it's like a PC and a
better one?
yeah. I guess it would need one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Omen says, do you think that the Xbox One PS4 will still have a large active user base by the time the next Xbox and PlayStation 6 are out? I'm starting to wonder if games like Fortnite, Minecraft, and COD might actually span support across 3 whole generations, especially with the Switch 2 being closer to PS4 than PS5 graphically. That's an interesting question. That's also something I thought about. Is Epic going to have to support Fortnite across 3 generations of hardware? But, is Call of Duty still going to be... if Call of Duty has to release on Switch 2, are they also just going to be like, well, if we got to release it on Switch 2, we might as well release it on Xbox One and PlayStation 4? Nobody left behind, because the whole idea of those games is to be available to many people as possible. I don't know the answer to that question. What do you think, Jez? Do you think they'll get phased out eventually where, hey, Fortnite's not supported anymore on Xbox One, or, Rocket League's not supported on PS4
right?
or whatever?
Minecraft did, right? They ditched it on 360, I think. So I think it could happen eventually, but
did they ditch it on? Did they ditch it on the 360 because they just couldn't update it with the Bedrock version? Isn't that?
I think it was just because also collapsing users and spend and stuff like that.
So you think maybe it's sometime after the launch of the next consoles they might they look at how many people are playing on those platforms and it's not many anymore, so pull the plug type thing?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But I also think if there is one company that can make development efficient over multiple generations, it's probably Epic.
Right.
They are the company that makes Fortnite and engines, so they're probably probably all the same code base effectively. I don't know.
All right, so we have Trickstar for Trade. Jez, I need my Final Fantasy VII on Xbox. Where is it? Also, why isn't Halo Wars 2 on Steam when Halo Wars 1 is? I mean, according to Nate the Hate, Final Fantasy VII is coming sometime in this year, probably end of fall 2025. So
Did he say that?
yeah, he said that in his thing that he's coming to Xbox fall. He's coming to Xbox and PlayStation. Remake and Rebirth were both going to be announced this year, with Remake coming 2025 and Rebirth 2026. Is essentially what he said. So if you take Nate at his word, then sometime this year, Remake will be on Xbox.
So that's like another game to add to the Xbox backlog, because, you know, it's launching for the first time on Xbox, and a lot of people probably played it already on other platforms. I know I have. But there's going to be, you know, at least hundreds of thousands of people who are interested in playing it who haven't played it before. So for them, that might as well be a new game on a new platform for them.
Yeah. So what about Halo Wars 2 though? Why is it not on Steam when Halo Wars 1 is?
Ah, man, I think it's just a case of that code base is archived, and it's just, for them, it's just like, we're just not gonna bother with it, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it just is what it is, unfortunately.
All
Because
right.
I heard that there was a point where they were working on it. I think I put that out there a long time ago, but for whatever reason, it never happened, never materialized.
Mike says, with 2025 looking as stacked as it does from Xbox first party and others coming to Game Pass, do you think Xbox can manage to keep momentum going? Will they be able to regularly turn out at least one game each quarter? I think yes, for the next three years. I think they should be able to. Yeah. I think it's all like the dominoes have been all set up, and we've been waiting for them to tip over, and it really kind of seems like this is like, okay, now they're starting to tip. And you know, even with the 10 games or 9 games or whatever is coming this year, they still got like way more announced that we know are coming. So I think they can. Yeah. I think
Gonna be fun to find out.
Yeah, and we'll be here to talk about it, and we'll find out together. D Big Fluffy Bunny says, "Hey everyone, I was super stoked throughout the showcase, and I'm digging Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. My question is, do you think Doom's soundtrack will stay unique to itself, or will it blend into just another metal soundtrack in a game? I feel like the Doom games all have their own feel and twist on what a soundtrack is. I really hope it will make me feel like I want to stand and fight. Not to take anything away from what this team will accomplish, I'm sure it will be good, but I think Mick Gordon left some big shoes to fill. Thanks for the content, fellas. Great video, Rand. Have a good weekend." Thank you. And I agree.
I literally
Mick
thought
Gordon
the same
is
thing.
missed. I do agree. I was like, oh man, I wanted to see a Mick Gordon themed. But I mean, just the music that they were playing in the showcase, I was like, yeah, it's doomy, you know, right? Heavy metal riffs.
Doomy.
It's doomy. Yeah, but I do wish they never fell out, because Mick Gordon's just he's great.
He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks, but hopefully they'll try and reach that level, but we'll see.
Good old Collinwood says, "Hello, Rand and Jez. Exodus, the Archimedes engine, is a game coming out from EA. It's also a book by Peter F. Hamilton. Rand, have you read it? If so, what do you think of it? Also, not only Ninja Gaiden 2 Black came out this week, but also Onyx Storm, the third book in the Fourth Wing series by Rebecca Yarros. Rand, are you a Empyrean fan?" No, I haven't read those books. They ain't for me. I think they're like romance stuff, like fantasy romance.
Ew, romance.
Yeah, it's basically for women. Women love that stuff. It reminds me a lot of like the Twilight craze and the like 50 Shades of Grey craze that happened back then. But people love that. They call it romantasy. It's like a genre now, Jez. Romantasy, because they take like fantasy worlds, but it's basically just like porn for women. You know, like
Is that like Game of Thrones?
Nothing like Game of Thrones. But no, I've not read it. I don't have any plans on reading it.
That's got romance.
Yeah, but romance isn't like, it's not
Jaime
the main.
and Cersei Lannister.
Yeah, it's not the main focus.
That could be more romantic.
It's an aspect of two characters' relationships, but the romance is like the big part of these books and stuff. As for Exodus, I do own the book. I haven't read it yet. I was gonna read it right before the game comes out. Is my plan. I don't really see the need to read it right now when the game's not coming out probably for another year. And I just would be like, okay, what did I just read? So my plan on it was reading it closer to the release of the game. Resident Force says, hey guys, been a bit since I've asked a question through here, but with this developer direct just happening, I figured now would be a good time. Of the games shown at Developer Direct, which game was your favorite of the show, and if there was a poor showing, which one was it? I love the show. It was an easy 9 out of 10 for me. Xbox starting 2025 off very strong. Appreciate all that you guys do for the community. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
What would be your favorite of the show, Jez? Was it Doom or was it Ninja Gaiden 4?
I think it was Ninja Gaiden 4. Just because I'm on such a Japanese game kick right now, and as much as I do love Doom, I just I mean it's a close one, but I really like Metal Gear Rising, man. And it's been a long time.
I'm gonna agree with you. It was Ninja Gaiden 4 for me because of the surprise and seeing it in platinum and just how gory and fast paced and all. I was like, oh yes, that's not. And Doom's like close, but it also is like it's Doom, and we had Doom a couple years ago, so. What would be your least favorite then?
Least favorite, probably South of Midnight, and again, it's sort of like close thing. I outlined earlier, like Clair Obscur, I'm excited about because the turn-based aspect of it. I'm really excited about Doom Doom because it's Doom, and then Ninja Gaiden just because it's that whole Japanese hype train that I'm on right now. So South of Midnight just kind of, while it looks cool, it just does seem like a lower key kind of game.
Let me ask you this question. Sometimes you've always said that Microsoft can be too conservative when it comes with some things. Like OD, you were surprised that Microsoft would team with Kojima and name a game OD, right? Are you surprised Microsoft is all in on like the violence of Ninja Gaiden, chopping the heads off, the blood everywhere, cutting the limbs off?
No, because there is Gears, right?
True.
But
Gears normally you're destroying monsters and stuff.
Yeah, I suppose. But you kind of destroy monsters and robots in this as well, in a way.
Because sometimes you've questioned whether Microsoft is like, sometimes they can be a little bit on the safer side of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing Ninja Gaiden 1 right now, and I didn't realize there were like sort of hyper 90s anime fan service, jiggle physics in the game.
Oh yeah.
So there's that kind of conservative attitude that Microsoft has sometimes, where it's like, will they do, the fan service or the sexy stuff, or will they try and avoid all that because they don't want to offend the shareholders or whatever it is, So I guess we'll see what kind of vibe Ninja Gaiden 4 has, because it's unexpectedly. I mean, obviously I'm not that well versed with the franchise, but it's an unexpectedly sexy game. I had no idea, man. This woman just comes out like, I'm just chilling, killing dudes, and then this woman's like, "Oh, hi, I'm a demon slayer," and she's like in full leather bondage gear. I'm like, "Oh, it's this kind of game." Pleasant surprise, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But I do kind of feel like a lot of game development over the last sort of decade has been sort of typified by wanting to avoid offending people, I think. But I almost feel like it's swinging back in the other direction now, like with games like Stellar Blade and, developers being less afraid to be a bit more fan servicey again. Maybe that's the Japanese influence, I don't know. Because obviously they're not really privy to Western culture wars and American sensibilities. I do love how like Americans like tend to get offended by nudity so much, but not the violence. And then in Europe, it's like the opposite way around, where it's like the nudity's fine, but the violence is bad. Like in Germany, you'll see like boobs at 6 p.m. on the TV.
Boobs? You see boobs?
Yeah, like in ads and stuff.
There be tatas in ads and stuff?
Yeah.
What?
I was
Straight
like,
up?
oh,
Like
shit.
just 6 o'clock, they're just women with their breasts out on German television?
Yeah, man, on
Wow.
some channels.
Oh my god.
And maybe not 6 o'clock, but like much earlier than I would have expected. Like even in Britain, and Britain's pretty liberal with its TV stuff. But then you get like all the German censorship with the violence, right? It's like, oh, that's too violent, it's too violent, it's too violent, you know. And it's the opposite way around in America. But Japan's just like, fuck it, have all the violence and have all the boobs as well, you know.
That is true. Let's see. We got Sith Banks 87. Hey guys, will you be checking out Saturday night's main event this weekend? Also, do either of you own a 30-sided dice? A fun thing me and my friends do every year for the Royal Rumble. Whatever number we roll, that's our favorite wrestler for the year. We just show extra enthusiasm for that specific man or woman. I might.
That's interesting.
I might have it on in the background. I won't watch it like sitting in front of the television because commercials just ruin everything. So I might have it on.
I don't have to deal with that.
Or whatever. Or I might just check out clips. Because I just
no commercials in Europe.
Yeah. But no, I don't own a 30-sided die, and I don't know if Jez does. But I will watch the Royal Rumble. I've always watched the Royal Rumble. I always thought it was fun, so I'll definitely be watching this year.
I too will be watching the Rumble. And I'll be watching it on the telly because I don't have to deal with any ads.
Lee Sanders. True. Evening. So with the fantastic announcement of 3 games joining Avowed in the space of 2 months, good to see Xbox painting themselves into a corner and run out of titles to release in the future. Or now the tap is opening up and this will be something to not worry about. Well, I mean, okay, so I guess there is, some concern of like, okay, well, if you release all this stuff, eventually in the future, maybe you because game development, takes so long that you'd be like, what the hell's going on? But they still have a ton of games that are announced that we don't know when they're releasing, right? We know the game's coming this year. And then it's like, okay, what games are 2026 and 2027? But the time you get to 2028 and 2029, a lot of the teams that put out their games from earlier this generation would then be ready to put out their games, new games again, right? Like Double Fine, it's been, 3.5 years now since they've put out a game? And if they're not they got to be ready with something soon. And so... Indiana Jones just came out by Machine Games, right? When you get to like 2027, 2028, Indiana Jones could be ready to be shown. Indiana Jones 2 or maybe Wolfenstein 3. So like all those teams would be ready to like restock eventually, right? And that's the good part about having all those studios and all those teams is that it's like the rollover. So, and Elder Scrolls 8 or 6 is supposed to be in the next couple years, right, Jez? Something like...
Yep.
And didn't they say something like the FTC trial, like Elder Scrolls 6 was like 2026 or something? I mean, I don't really believe that's the case, but... yeah, so I get the concern, but I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. And we got Governor Grimm.
I do wonder about Elder Scrolls 6, man.
Yeah.
Like after Starfield, Starfield was good, but it was just also flat in some ways, especially on the role playing aspects and the lack of density. And the game seems to have lost momentum now. Like I was really wondering, are they gonna sort of have a cyberpunk like renaissance with Starfield? Are they gonna release an expansion that's so good that it sort of revives everyone's interest in the game and delivers on, its potential, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen,
Well, I mean,
so I hope that. Sorry, go on.
Though the whole Cyberpunk thing also kind of coincided with the release of a big update to go alongside, the release of Phantom Liberty. So, they would have to do something. I mean, maybe they're, what you're talking about will happen if they release the game on Switch 2 and PlayStation and have a big update with a new expansion and have all these new players come in. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Governor Grimm says, so your best guess, will the next gen Xbox console come with Steam or other storefronts accessible? Would you prefer an open platform or a more closed console experience for next gen? I mean, it's tough to say considering we've only ever experienced a closed console experience. I don't know what an open one even would look like or be, so it's tough to say I would prefer one or the other because I've never experienced the other, so I don't know. The part of me thinks like the whole Steam on the console or whatever is a pipe dream. And like I believe Phil when he's like, oh, there's a reason why he mentioned Epic and itch.io or whatever and not Steam. So there's a part of me that thinks like maybe Steam's just too lofty of a goal, or they could get Steam on the handheld because it's going to be Windows based, so you could sideload it. But the console maybe is a different thing. Now Jez thinks differently than me. He thinks that's all but a foregone conclusion. I don't
think it's a foregone conclusion, but I don't think it's completely out of the realms of possibility.
Yeah,
I know that Valve and Microsoft have a close relationship. You know, they both kind of depend on each other, at least today. You know, I know Valve's doing its Linux stuff, but a lot of games still don't run that well on Proton, even if you're running like the experimental stuff, and it is getting gradually better. But like the compatibility of Windows is quite hard to compete with. But
yeah,
I mean, they recently said in an interview like the goal with Steam OS isn't to undermine Windows. We want it to be a great experience on both, you know, and they don't have shareholders to answer to, right?
No.
I think they just genuinely want to make a good product, and that's why Steam's so fucking popular, because they have no shareholders extracting all the value, you know.
Yeah, and I just see on Twitter, Danny just released the interview with Phil Spencer. It's 26 minutes long on Twitter, so we're about to end our show anyways. We'll probably have to talk about that next week.
Yeah.
But it was super chat. Justin, he not only joined the channel, but he also dropped the $10. It says PS5 will probably sell well this year, even if it just goes to Yotai. That's if GTA comes out this fall. No PC version and Xbox hardware is losing mind share in sales. You know, Jez did put out, or at least a thought experiment of, well, maybe people buy the Series S because it's the cheapest way to experience Grand Theft Auto instead of, you know, especially if they're PC people. So we'll see if that, you know.
I mean,
entices.
college football boosted the Series S.
Yeah.
So it's like there was a big casual audience capture there, which was interesting. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
And Steve McGovern with the 2 says Xbox should prioritize Switch 2 support over PS5. Well, they're going to do it all. So they're not going to, I don't think they're going to prioritize one over the over there, but they'll do both.
I do think it'd be less risky if they did that.
Sure, I'd agree. I think if they supported the Switch 2 and not the PS5, like if that was what they were doing, I think everybody would be happy. And I don't think you really see anybody complain about the exclusives going to Switch. I think it's really just PlayStation that really, you know, is seen as competition. If it was just Switch 2, it'd be like, all right, yeah, cool, that's fine, I don't care. But yeah, anyways, I think that's it for the show. We're approaching that 4-hour mark. We got through everything we wanted to say. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for these 4 hours. Hope you enjoyed the Developer Direct as well as the showcase, or as well as this podcast, rather. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Do the same over on Spotify and iTunes or the podcast apps you listen to, because it does help out. Likes, reviews, all that stuff. And we will be back on Tuesday with either an Xbox 2+1 or an Xbox Ultimate, talking about maybe whatever Phil Spencer said or whatever else is happening, or hot takes from me and Jez about things. And until then, hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you all for the support from the Xbox 2 Patreon members to all the people who super chatted and joined the channel, gifted memberships. It is most welcome. Love you all, and we'll see you next week. Later, guys.
Rock and roll, baby.